The 2025 season makes its way to the first and only road course race of this regular season. Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, the host of the next race in the 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, as we welcome you to coverage on the KBueno Racing Network of the series from Road America in Wisconsin. And welcome to the coverage on KBueno. We're so happy to have you join us, where alongside Francisco Bacallao in the booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, it's been a brief couple of races, lots of great action, but nearing the end of our first stint to the All-Star break in Martinsville, we're going road racing for the first and only time in the regular campaign. We will not see another road course until Watkins Glen in the playoffs, race number 17. So tonight, the first possible chance for drivers to get acclimated to this road course scene and maybe give us a new winner this season.
Happy to be here on top of the Road America racetrack, a famous racetrack here in North America for both NASCAR and IndyCar fans alike, with also some endurance racing going on here. This track is challenging, it's fun, it gives us some great racing. I expect nothing short of it here with the Droppin the Hammah crew, and it'll give us an interesting view as to who are the aces when it comes to road course racing in this series.
We've got plenty of those in this series, along with some of the former winners already this year. Here's a look at the inaugural season schedule. Like we mentioned, right on the edge of this first half of the regular season. We only have two left, including tonight, Road America tonight, race number 6. Then we'll head to New Hampshire and Loudon for race 7. We'll then head out to the Paperclip Martinsville Speedway in late March. That'll be the coverage of the All-Star race, and then we'll continue regular season racing to decide those 16 drivers that will advance into the 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs. And like I said, the only other road course race in the calendar is Watkins Glen, and that's all the way in mid-June. So we do not have a lot of road course racing in this calendar, so it's not like we're going to see this type of racing dominate the storylines. But Francisco, we more often than not have seen the fact that road courses can alter the projection for drivers, and many guys like it, many guys also don't in the same sentiment. So you also have that war of who can take advantage of the moment and seize the opportunity at a track like this. Well, as the drivers take behind the iRacing official pace car, it is our time to bring you trackside and get you tonight's starting grid for race number 6 in the inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series campaign from the virtual Road America circuit in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. We're on the pole. Ross Harlow harnesses the top spot with a 212.039. He's got Warren Kyle Keith, not the first front row start for Warren Kyle Keith. He's been blistering fast in qualifying over the season. He'll start on the outside of row number 1. Back in row 2, you'll find in third place Cedric Hunter, driver of the number 45 Toyota, and Eric Schaefer, former winner this season at Phoenix. He's going to look to get another one, this time from the road course. He'll be in position number 4. Justin Erb for TOW Racing lines his Chevrolet up inside the top 5. Stephen Harlow will roll behind him in P6 outside of row 3, before you find Zachary Hall rolling in 7th. Richard Swavely in the 32 car back in 8th place. Steven Stempian, one of the league owners, going to be in 9th, and flanked by his fellow league owner in 10th, Chris Progrard, driving the number 7 car.
Brandon Banks, last week's race winner, is going to roll off from P11 here alongside Alex Muscarella. Kip Easley, another DBR racer, is going to be in the 13th position with alongside him John Payless in the number 90 machine. Rolling off 15th is a road course ace and first driver not to take a lap time around this track, Lawson Peel, with James Kunkel in the 42 alongside of him. Dusty Applin, a standout last week at Chicagoland, is going to roll off from 17th with Justin Hendry in the 85 in P18. Craig Parks will roll off from 17th, and currently not on the grid, but in the session is the 94 of Timothy Stubblefield. He might be a pit starting here tonight.
Back in 21st is the Canadian Brad Fulham. Casey Knighton for D Legacy Motor Club back in 22nd. 23rd belongs to Chris Cabot, the rookie driver, with Robert A. Moyer Jr. for Category 5 Esports in 24th position. And that's your grid here from the virtual Road America track as the field takes their first bit of laps behind the iRacing official pace car. You probably won't see it until lap number 15 of this 45-lapper, to which we look at our SK Sim Racing race analysis. 45 laps from the Road America track with just a little under 200 miles on tap. and a little over nearly 300 kilometers on tap. Only 2 stages, though, as opposed to the usual 3 that we see on the ovals this season. We go 15 laps until the end of stage number 1, and we'll roll the 30 rest of them until the checkered flag waves. And much like we've seen Francisco from the ovals, you know, it's going to be chaotic, but we will not see yellow flags thrown by race control. These road course races are known for not having yellows break up the action. 15 laps in, we will have that typical competition caution, if you will, to break up the stage, but for the most part, we're going to go green whether they wad it up or not.
Yeah, that could either be good for some or bad for some there, especially in turn 1. It's you've heard that meme in F1 games, don't send it too hard in a sand vault, and that's really the case in any road course race you do on iRacing because of the lack of cautions. You go into turn 1, and if there's a big crash and you make it through and gain like 10, 15 spots, you're the happiest guy out there on the racetrack. You're just happy to be there and gain all those spots. And if you're on the bad end of that, man, are you going to have a long day if you continue to do the race. There's some people who have that happen to them and then just decide to call it a quits just because they'll spend the whole race just having an uphill battle for probably not the position that they were hoping to finish in. So we'll hope for the sake of these guys they're able to have a clean turns 1 and certainly turn 2. That could also be a very chaotic corner, as well as turn 4. So really take care of it on the opening lap with the cold tires and just try to see if you can get some rhythm going here. It's going to be very important for these drivers to get a rhythm under them, especially considering the fact that iRacing, since this last update, has given us the ability to have dirt on the track, as in like debris and sand and grass filter its way on the racetrack. And as these pace laps have gone through, you've probably noticed some dust and dirt flying around. That's going to be very crucial because that will loosen the grip on the race cars.
Yeah, we will see the debris take into effect if drivers get off the racing surface and re-emerge, whether it be from the grass and some of the dirt particles that kick in, or if they end up in a sand trap, if they get those tires rolling again, they back up into the surface, and they will create lessened grip just because of all that debris that rolls through. There are plenty of difficult corners here at Road America, this being one of them, the hard-braking corner, turn 12, otherwise titled Canada Corner. Plenty of different types of turns at this Road America track that we will talk to you about over the course of tonight's 45 lapper. Should be a bit of a shorter affair than what we usually see on the ovals that go a bit of a ways, but for the road courses that mostly stay green, we will not have any yellows to interrupt the action. Ross Harlow, who is coming off of his best finish this season last week at Chicagoland Speedway, going to look to get P1 at the end of this one. He'll start from the front row. Warren Kyle Keith has seen the front row on the starting grid several times this year, has not converted it to a race win in 2025. Can anyone dethrone Drinkin' Bros Racing, who have won the last 4 in this inaugural season? Pace car makes its way to the right, uphill to the entry of pit road, and the field will see the green flag for the first time on a road course this year. Let's go racing from Road America.
And let's see just how careful they are here into turn 1 at the front. They're generally playing nice with each other. Cedric Hunter drifting off a little bit wide. Some cars, as the 90 of Sean Kalis goes for a spin off of the first corner, collects nobody else. So it's just the one car going to the inside as we now approach what is turn 3, as turn 2 is basically a non-existent corner on this racetrack. And so far, just the 90 that has gone around as a good lead for the 16 of Ross Harlow on this opening stretch. As there's Cedric Hunter now trying to peek to the inside. Some contact made with Warren Kyle Keith.
And this is a treacherous corner, downhill, hard-braking turn 5. And Warren Kyle Keith sails over the curb. And there goes Justin Erb nearly sideways and into the inside wall. Uphill through the Corvette Bridge. Another car off on the back end of turn 5. It's James Kunkel. I think he's able to regather his Toyota Camry and get things back together, but Cedric Hunter makes the most of that opportunity, peeked to the inside, pressured Warren Kyle Keith a little much downhill entering the 5th corner, and Hunter makes the move for second, still trying to hang on to his car as he attempts to catch up to the second gap that is in front of him. Ross Harlow leading this opening stretch convincingly, the first trip through the carousel, and then the high-speed right-hander, the kink here at Road America.
And let's see if we can see what happened to this 42. On this opening lap, you normally never see guys go too deep, but right there he broke about right, but it looks like just not enough brake pressure, and he goes well a ways wide, and just I'm not sure exactly what the case is there, but he ends up on the sand trap there, and he will rejoin the racetrack, dirtying it up a little bit.
Well, thankfully he keeps his car collected. That's something you will find specifically in turn 5 is hard braking. I mean, sometimes the car doesn't really like the way you input it from behind the wheel, and it will just decide really not to brake, or it'll brake too much and lock up the front tires or the rear tires as well. You may encounter a bit of wheel hopping action or just some right front, left front lockups, and the car will not brake or turn into the corner. Turn 5 is one of those many areas where that can happen. Turn 1 the same, but the other corner, turn 12, Canada corner, will be another place where we'll see those brakes either succeed in flying colors or fail dramatically and give these drivers a bit of a ride behind the wheel. Warren Kyle Keith has not given up on this fight for second place. This gap, at least within a car length or two, they have pulled away from 4th place. Stephen Harlow, as he holds on to that spot. 5th place goes to Chris Progar for TOW Racing, right in front of his teammate, Justin Erb, who found himself loose at the exit of turn 5, going up the hill to the Corvette Bridge as they enter the Sargento area of the racetrack. Sargento Bridge right above them. And it's all single file from here, but as we watch Ross Harlow continue his command above everyone else, our biggest curiosity, Francisco, is this driver right here, the 11th place car, Lawson Peel, just now stepping into the top 10. His teammate Brandon Banks sliding off of turn 5, and Peel making the move underneath the driver in his second start this season, Dusty Applin, who performed well at Las Vegas before, or Chicagoland rather, before crashing out a little bit earlier in the race. And Peel is the most dominant road course driver in Sunoco Cup history, and the reason why we continue to bring that up is because that's the resemblance of any sort of history that this series has past Daytona Race 1 this year, and Lawson is the most decorated driver in that series' history, and that goes on the road courses as well, has won many road course events in that series respectively, and here he is battling inside the top 10 and making the progress through the first 2.
Yeah, when you're on the onboard with this 9 car going around this racetrack, Kenneth, you just hear the amount of dirt sitting around on this racetrack in certain bits and pieces, and it can provide some inconsistent grip. You see the 48 lock up just ahead of him and is able to keep it on the racetrack, but that'll allow the 88 of Stempion to put some pressure on him. As you see Stempion cut a little bit there, and he kicks up the dirt just in front of Lawson Peel. And as this race goes on, the track is just going to get dirtier and dirtier. To see Progar in a battle up there with Richard Swavely and Justin Erb as well. So just battles in these first couple laps after the race start, persisting for several positions.
And as you take a look at the right side of your screen, we're going to stay on board with Lawson here. The battle for 5th developing quite a bit. Progar now under fire from Richard Swavely behind. That's for 6th place heading into turn 1. And Swavely will peek the nose underneath. Progar will play the defense, and he'll stay put right in front of that Toyota Camry. But this is a good look, Francisco, at what it's like to drive a lap here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. This track demands a lot from you, and like you mentioned, there are plenty of places where you can just get a couple of tires into the grass or the gravel and kick some of that back up onto the racing surface. But, you know, there is really no runoff area that's straight up asphalt. So many times you'll see drivers overshoot corners and they will end up sliding in the grass, and what may be a lost position or two can turn into 3, 4, 5, or even many more track position, but lost in the sense of getting off the track and having to slow up because it's so slick in the grass and gravel area. Very hard to recollect the race car once it's sailed off into that respective area. And because this track is basically flanked by grass and gravel on either side of the racetrack almost 98% of the time, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have to stay on the racetrack or else your track position is going to go bye-bye. And look at all of that gravel and dirt getting kicked up right before they enter the carousel. Just so much of it getting kicked up from Progar and Justin Erb and Richard Swavely as they got a couple of tires off of the racing surface.
Yeah, and Muscarella had gone a little bit wide as well, and that's what's kicking it up, and it's kicking it up again here just before the kink, and CPU had the nose there and decided to back it out, just make sure that he can get through this corner. And that's gonna be a pretty big topic of conversation. It's just how dirty the track gets, because if you don't have the same grip to the corner, approaching it every single time, that's as close as you're gonna get to having a wet racetrack, because that's what it's not like to run in the rain. It's you approach the corner, and it's going to be a different corner every single lap. And you can attest to this, Kenneth. You did a lot of rain running at this season's 24 Hour of Daytona, so you can kind of confirm that kind of feeling.
Yeah, and it's not fun as Muscarella gets off into the grass and nearly stacks up Lawson Peel. That's the exit of the final corner, and they're up the hill. Peel will make the move to the inside in this continuous battle for 9th place, now decided right before they get to turn 1. But yeah, it's very treacherous, and you mix rainwater with debris kicking up from the outside of the racetrack, and it is not fun. Your grip levels go down considerably, but with the new debris refresh that is set to have phase 2 come out next week on Tuesday for the iRacing 2025 Season 2 build, they will sort of amp up the detail, amp up the realism for debris getting kicked up onto the racing surface. And if you do have enough of it on the track, if you go over that, even with the dry track setting, your car can still understeer or oversteer, and you will not have the grip necessary to make it through the corner. You can spin out, as a matter of fact, if you get into all of those marbles quite early on into the corner when you're going such a high rate of speed. Thankfully, though, track is not littered with dirt, but drivers are getting a little experimentative with how they are able to use the exits of these corners specifically, and how they're basically taking up the entirety of the rumble strips as Lawson Peel catches up to Steven Stepien in the battle for 8th place. That will probably build up right in front or behind of Richard Swavely.
And it was that corner that Lawson Peel was approaching right now. That's the dirtiest corner on the racetrack right now. It's that's where you see the most amount of dirt just before you enter the carousel. So that's going to be a tricky corner, especially if you don't watch your entry. You can actually clip the grass on the way in, lock up your tires, and you're going wide and you're going off the racetrack. So that's actually a very difficult corner that does not appear so well. This is another one right here, Canada corner, but so far nobody's really made significant mistakes at this end of the racetrack. Your top 3 all pretty close together. Ross Harlow's not really been putting much of a gap on Cedric Hunter or Warren Kyle Keith. They're all within a second and a half. You have to go pretty good far ways back before you get to the 11 of Stephen Harlow. He's about 4 seconds off of his brother, with Justin Erb riding out the top 5. And looking at Lawson Peel, Kenneth, he has not been in too much of a hurry right now. He's just minding his business, approaching what is the 88 of Steven Stepien as Muscarella just went wide off the final corner. That'll give the spot up to Zachary Hall in the 23, who was actually the fastest car in practice.
And Hall is just carving his way through the field, had a 2nd place finish at the Chicagoland Speedway last week, a mirror image of what transpired at Auto Club the week right before, in the sense that he was in position to win over the last several laps, but just fell short to a DBR driver. And last week at Chicagoland, it was Brandon Banks who took his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. And while you're looking at Ross Harlow, who's in the lead, I mean, these guys were in company of each other last week in those waning laps. Harlow, as we mentioned, got his season best finish of 3rd after rolling off 26 on the starting grid, in which all 3 of your podium drivers at Chicagoland that finished up front all started beneath the top 20, so they had made considerable progress through the field. I don't think we're going to see the same phenomenon happen quite here, Francisco, just because road courses seem to open up the skill gap between drivers that are really good at these types of tracks on stock cars and those who are just basically here for points and just want to get out of this, survived from the mayhem that can be a road course race behind the wheel. But Ross Harlow very confident in his ability to command the tempo of this race. However, still not quite out of the woods yet. Cedric Hunter is within half a second, and last time by just a tad bit faster than the Chevrolet leading the group.
And after Lawson Peel just got by the 88 of Steven Stepien, Stepien went wide in that very corner I was talking to you about, Kenneth. As you approach this corner, if you're not careful, he clips the grass, locks up the tire, and off he goes, off into the sand trap, loses the spot to the 23 of Hall. Here comes the 1 of Applin to take over that position as well, and kicks up more dirt onto what is already a difficult portion of the racetrack with a bunch of dirt in it.
And Stepien has progressed in the negative direction, track position-wise. He was up inside the top 10 comfortably, and after a couple of mistakes, he was riding behind his teammate Alex Muscarella, and both of them have had some troubles over the first 5 or so laps. Here's the onboard look from the Canadian Cedric Hunter, who was 3rd place at Auto Club Speedway a couple of weeks ago, has already won several stages in 2025, so a ton of points to his tally, and already playoff qualified early in this regular season, despite the fact that he has been knocking on the door but has not been able to open it and get a first race win of the year. But he's been very fast. Him and his teammate Zachary Hall, they have been lighting up the charts over the last several weeks, always drivers of note. But Hunter was taken out last week by Eric Schaefer. They had made door-to-door contact entering the tri-oval before turn 1 in the fight for the race lead. And then Hunter just got loose and went hard into the wall and basically was torn out of that race. Hunter looking for a bit of that redemption this time around from Road America, and he is chomping in on the deficit to the leader, Ross Harlow, Francisco. And when you're behind the wheel of a 3,400-pound stock car at a track like this, how do you try to keep it on the racing surface, and how do you manage to find yourself stable as these guys are and find some lap time in it?
It's easier said than done, but honestly, Kenneth, what I've found that generally works really well is when you have a car in front of you, you're able to really judge well how deep into the corner you've gone and how well your corner's been if the car's in front of you. If you're being chased down, more than likely someone's going to make a mistake there, whether it's yourself or the car in front of you and that, or the car behind you, and then that'll usually cause some problem in your race. But looking at it right now, Lawson Peel, he is not minded having the cars in front of him. He has just gotten by the 32 of Richard Swavely and now is setting his sights on Chris Brogar up in the 6th spot, and looking a little bit further up in P4, Stephen Harlow has a little bit of a battle going on with the 20 of Justin Erb. Those two well behind the race leaders, well ahead of Chris Brogar. So they're in what we would call no man's land here, just so far ahead of everybody else they have each other for company.
Yeah, and when you have company around you, in the case of Stephen Harlow, who we get a good onboard look from, not only from his Chevrolet, but from his sim rig at home, just how hard he's having to fight this wheel in this defense for 4th place. And you do have a great reference point. When there's somebody in front of you, you can kind of get a feel of what the braking markers are and just see what they're doing. When you're all by yourself, you can't take notes off of anyone, so you can't really cheat on anyone's homework, if you will, and try to get a successful grade out of all of it. Here's Justin Erb in the bottom end send to turn 1. Harlow will play the defense on the outside, keep the Chevrolet intact, and Justin Erb, a magnificent pass from a driver, Francisco, who struggled a bit in those first several laps. We noted turn 5 where just got all out of whack after the rear tires lit up behind the wheel of that Chevrolet. And all of a sudden, Justin Erb is finding his speed, steps up into 4th.
And you saw the move he made there to take the position away. He never did anything aggressive, but he stood out of line the entire front straightaway and got into the 11's car ahead, made him think that he's going to make a move into turn 1 way too early to try and defend super aggressively. He's just going to give up that spot. While that was going on, Chris Brogar in front of Lawson Peel made a mistake into turn 1, essentially handing the spot here to Lawson Peel. Here's the replay of that incident as they go into turn 1. There's the 7 who was in front of the 9, locks up going into turn 1, just goes in way too deep. Peel runs the normal line, gets a better exit, and cruises on by the 7, as that part of the racetrack, Kenneth, has also gotten pretty dirty all the way down into turn 3.
Yeah, there are a bunch of dirt particles down there off the corner and into that rumble strip. So even if you don't put some tires into the actual gravel itself, you may end up just picking it up because it's there and it's already been transferred over into the little bit of asphalt that's on the outside of turn 1. And speaking of gravel, another mistake that sends Alex Muscarella into that very same pit, this time at the bottom end of turn number 6, which actually goes uphill right before you find yourself into the several corners that lead to this part of the track right here. The carousel entering the right-hand kink. And Muscarella is all over the place, had a solid starting position, but the DTH Team Chevrolet has gone for a rather wild ride, but in the opposite direction to which he would like to be in, as he follows in the tracks of Brandon Banks, sitting calmly in 12th. Look at all of those particles right off of Canada Corner, and all the grip that can be lost there. It's still what follows in on the underbody of these race cars, which is chopped off quite a bit in this road course package, and it goes the same with the road or the short tracks on the schedule, Francisco. So it's very different from what we see at the super speedways in the mile and a half, as Muscarella gets the grass again off of the final corner. What you usually see on the bigger tracks is a full-on diffuser system at the back end of the race car, but here on the road courses and the short tracks, NASCAR has decided to chop a bit of it off, so you only have about 2 blades down there at the back end of the race car. You can get a good look at there off of turn 1 from Muscarella's car, so you don't have a lot of downforce, but it still sucks up a ton of dirt when it goes under the race car, so all of that dirt getting kicked up everywhere, and Muscarella just on the back end of the situation has definitely plummeted track position-wise.
The diffuser acts like a vacuum, if you will, so if anything that goes in there, it's going to spit it out, and it's going to go wherever the direction it's made to go in. And here's actually a good view of his most recent off-track excursion here, back at turn 6, which gave up the position to Brandon Banks. He's going down into turn 6, and I think it's the same situation as Stempien, just barely gets into the grass right there, locks up, and just goes wide into the dirt runoff. You see just how red the brakes already are in this race from how much they're using up those front brakes, being super aggressive with it. And this is right here the dirtiest part of the racetrack, right here, that little shoot into this carousel.
It's very narrow as well, and once you get off of this carousel, I mean, you got to deal with that fast right-hander, the kink known here at Road America. It is a pretty fast part of the track for many open-wheel cars that can nearly take that full out on the throttle, but in the stock cars, you got to slow down a bit, maybe kick it down a gear from the transmission, and then you got to be able to make that swift corner, quick shift to the right, and the car makes it through before getting onto this hard braking zone in Canada corner. This is a great fight building up for 8th on back Chris Progar, playing a bit of defense here, a little bit of wide off of turn number 12, but behind him, Richard Swabley in the 32 car, Dusty Applin in his second start, and Steven Stempien, who we noted lost a bit of track position in the first several laps, has dropped to 11th. So all of these cars within a couple tenths of a second, so great to keep an eye out on this as the battle for the lead still remains at about 4/10 of a second. Cedric Hunter in the attempt to catch up to Ross Harlow.
The top three have all really sandwiched together within about 3/4 of a second or so. Cedric Hunter trying to put the pressure onto the 16 here as he's going to get really close to his front bumper. We'll see this run down to turn 5. It's going to be pretty crucial to get the draft and try to make some kind of a move if he's trying to make the pass right now. They're about 10 seconds clear of 4th place Justin Erb. And here, as they go into the turn 5 portion, you see nothing serious being made as the 16 does lock up. And he's going to drift out wide. That's going to give the 45 the inside lane going up.
Here comes Hunter to the inside of turn 6. He'll have the preferred line. He may end up clearing Harlow before they get to the carousel into turn 7. New race leader from Road America. The Canadian in Hunter gets the move done. And Harlow nearly gives up second on the way out of turn 5. Warren Kyle Keith made the look underneath. Could not be accessed to the second spot. Denied on his way in, and Cedric Hunter will have a chance to lead these final 6 to the end of stage 1.
And that all started with the lockup going into turn 5. Here's the look of this from the 16's point of view. Enters here, and he downshifted a little early, locks it up, and it just doesn't have the same amount of grip. Here comes Cedric Hunter now. He's to his left side, and here's Warren Kyle Keith's view of this. Just as the 45 gets the better position here on the inside, the 16 has to slow down. Tries to get a piece of it, but the 16 shuts him off and is able to hold on to P2. All this is going on, and Lawson Peel continues to try and slowly close in the gap to Justin Erb and Stephen Harlow. Those three are bunching up for P4, about 10 seconds off the lead.
Yeah, Lawson sits in 6th right now, but the good news for him is that although he is many seconds off of this pack of 3 that leads this race from Road America right now, we will have a caution at the end of stage 1. So everyone will be brought back together. It gives an ample opportunity for some drivers to regain some of that lost track position over this opening run, or for some of those high toppers to fall back if they make some mistakes in the middle of traffic, or if we find a bit of chaos down the lane. James Kunkel for D Legacy Motor Club has just hit pit road. You saw a bit of that off of the final corner, Francisco, making the pit stop, and he is officially the first car a lap down.
And Dusty Applin actually got sent for a spin in Canada corner. I was just hearing it in the voice chat. As there's Warren Kyle Keith going wide in turn 3, so we have a couple of incidents to talk about here.
And there's a mistake from the St. Augustine, Florida native, one that we have not seen all race long. Remember that 10-second gap and the advantage back to Justin Erb, who sits in 4th. Well, it's not so insurmountable anymore for Erb and company in this great battle for 4th, 5th, and now 6th place with Lawson Peel hanging in the background down to turn 5. And just like I mentioned, Francisco, one mistake here at Road America, you go off into the grass or the gravel traps, and you're going to be in for deep trouble. If there is a pack of cars behind, and there's Peel going to the inside, uphill turn 6, it makes the move for 5th.
And here's the view of what happened to Dusty Applin down in Canada corner, which cost him about 4 or 5 positions, I believe. He's behind this group of Progar and Swabley, who had already been passed by Peel. There goes Appley. Nothing too aggressive there. The 32 gets into the 7, and then at the same time, Stempien gets into the 1, so both Progar and Applin get sent for the spin there in Canada corner. And let's see if we can find what sent the 78 car wide in turn 3. I think it was by himself. It didn't look like he had help in that particular instance, Kenneth, so we'll try and see if we can get a look at it.
Yeah, it seemed to have just been an overcooked entry to turn 3, and like Francisco says, turn 2 is not really a corner, and we can argue about that all day long. I think we'll have a discussion about what actually are numbered corners here at Road America, because turn 4 is also not really a turn. It's just a slight curve of a straightaway. But downhill into turn number 2, or turn number 3, is exactly where it catches Warren Kyle Keith off guard, and he ends up in the gravel trap. So he's sitting third right behind the top 2 that just had switched over, and Cedric Hunter takes the lead. And yeah, just too hard on the brakes and nowhere to go but the gravel for the 78 car, who goes for a slide. Thankfully is able to save the race car before harm is done, but the harm is all of that lost time. And in the midst of that, Francisco, he has fallen back to 6th place. So there may have been another mistake that Warren Kyle Keith copped up that we didn't see quite live on air. And here's the appeal to the inside of turn 1 on Justin Erb. He steps onto the podium.
And on the final corner right here, here's the incident where the 78 just goes way too wide and gets on the throttle, spins the car out, and does not get into the tire barrier. But this is compounding one mistake into another, and that's the kind of stuff that sends your road course races into array.
And he had nearly lost 5 seconds in that first mistake off of turn 3. And I mentioned just how close Urban Company was. So it only takes one mistake for Warren Kyle Keith to give up all that track position. And so the Florida native will have to re-rack his brain and get things sorted for the rest of this run leading up to the caution for stage number 1 at lap number 15. And the battle for third decided as Lawson Peel makes the move. Only problem is he is 9.9 seconds away from those at the front who are right nose to tail. Ross Harlow takes back the race lead from Cedric Hunter. They are approaching lap car Sean Kalis, who went for a spin off turn 1 on the opening lap of this race. And it's a dead heat fight for the top step of the podium from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, down to Canada Corner.
With lap traffic in the way, you see Kalis holding off to the left side, decides to check up, and as they proceed to Canada Corner, Cedric Hunter not letting that 16 go. You see us tucking right in, almost gets into his back bumper, and just look how much dirt is on that curb as they come out of Canada Corner. It is absolutely, almost looks nothing like asphalt, almost looks like an extension of the sand trap.
You got to tiptoe on the tightrope or else you may end up washing out into the water, but for this case, none of them make the mistakes. Off of the final corner, Cedric Hunter is still within striking distance. It takes one small mistake from Harlow or a really good set of corners by Hunter to make another move. We noted turn 5, the deciding factor in the first lead change of this race. Harlow getting a little bit of locking up on the left front tire. Hunter taking use of the wide approach by Harlow through the corner. And now Ross has to play another set of defense here for the first 15 corners of Road America, and Hunter is there, looking to the back bumper off of turn 3.
And these two are going to try to battle it out to get the track position before this stage caution comes out. And the question is, are they going to pit before the stage caution to give themselves guaranteed track position for the restart, Kenneth? This is the only guaranteed caution you have. Track position is going to matter to give yourself a gap. We talked about how they're 10 seconds clear of Lawson, as Lawson started, I believe, in 15th and had to drive his way all the way through the field. You don't want to be back in 15th for the restart, especially if you have to stop anyways at least once during that final stage. They may as well get it done now, as Warren Kyle Keith locked up big time going into turn 5. He is almost into the tire barrier.
And that is race gone from bad to worse for Warren Kyle Keith as the battle for the lead persists in the entry to the Speedville Bridge, entering the carousel. And on the right side of your screen, a quick look at what happened to Warren Kyle Keith, who's lost already a ton of track position. And the mistake entering turn 5, car doesn't turn, and it doesn't brake either, and he nearly gets into the tire barriers. What's that? 3 different instances where he had been maybe face up with a barrier of some kind, and he did not hit it. I'm surprised he didn't get a piece of it off the final corner, the last mistake, but does a great job of stopping the car right before he gets face to face with those tire barriers. And Cedric Hunter still within half a second. A couple car lengths between these two, the difference into the final 3 of stage 1.
And that last corner, man, that last corner is so dirty. progressing from the final corner all the way up through that little section before the final proper corner here at this racetrack. So that's becoming basically an entire section of off-track excursion of having to feather the throttle. We'll have to see as this race goes on just how much dirtier it gets and how that actually becomes a challenge for these guys to navigate the racetrack, because soon enough this is going to be 50% racetrack, 50% off track.
You know, the solid thing about having cautions at road courses is that if there is debris on the track, there is a grounds crew and a safety crew that will clean it up.
I don't know.
But we don't have cautions here apart from that stage, and there are no crews to help us out. So
yeah,
for the most part, the track
there you
will
go.
not be refreshed unless there is a surprise rain shower, which we will not see at all in this series. And at a road course with stock cars, still not possible to do on the iRacing service with rain tires.
That's something I can't wait for, when they add the rain tires to these cars.
Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun. And, you know, we have rain tires on a bunch of cars already on iRacing. The LMP1 cars, well, the hyper cars, if you will, the hybrid cars for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We've got GT4 cars with rain tires, Mazda MX-5s with rain tires, GT3 cars with rain tires. The Formula V, I think, has rain tires as well. And there are many other cars that I'm missing here on this list that are not rain capable, but the stock cars are not. And I think the burning question for many NASCAR fans is, when are we getting rain tires so that we can have a race like this under a heavy shower or some precipitation on the track? You can get cars, NASCAR stock cars, in a rain session on iRacing. It takes a little bit of finessing the iRacing UI system to get it to work, and it does work in hosted and league races, but you will have slick tires, so good luck out there, I guess.
And it works at Talladega.
It does work at Talladega. It works on the ovals, so you can race rain on the ovals, which is a choice. It's a ton of fun, but it's very hard to drive, and I've driven many road course tracks with this next-gen car on these slick tires, and let me tell you, you're going through some of those corners at like 35 miles an hour because it does not turn, and it doesn't make the corner otherwise.
You know, this is a reminder, and I never got to experience this, but you did, racing in a bunch of Xbox leagues, Kenneth. You guys would put rain at the Homestead Miami Speedway and call it Eldora.
Yeah, we didn't have dirt in Forza Motorsports 6 or 7, so yeah, that's exactly what we did. As sort of a bootleg dirt track, we would put a bunch of rain on the track and then have the cars race around there on slick tires. And it was a ton of fun. It was really awesome back in the day to race that configuration. But I mean, you know, that's the closest thing we get to rain racing in the sim. And for the oval side of things, or at least the stock car road course side of things, we will not see rain for the foreseeable future. There is Warren Kyle Keith coming on to pit road, which answers your question, Francisco, of whether we'd see anyone hit pit road in the waning laps of the stage. Warren Kyle Keith says, I've already had a bad first stage. Why not get some of that late track position in stage 2?
And I think this lap will be the telling one to see just how many more people decide to follow him, because the stage ends at the end of not this one, but the next lap, as here's a battle for what is P6 right now between Steven Stempien and Zachary Hall. Zachary Hall looking to the inside of Stempien going into turn 5. He's going to try to get his nose to the inside. The 88 sees him. They'll be side by side as Stempien gives way to the 23. We'll see if he brings the fight back going up into 6. It doesn't appear so. So Zachary Hall moves up into P6. We saw him right behind Lawson Peel earlier. I'm pretty sure the 23 made some kind of a mistake to get him this far back behind the 12, or behind the 9 rather, just so used to Lawson in the 12. But maybe this caution will serve the 23 some justice. We saw him be really fast in practice as well, so there is some pace in that 23. He just needs a chance at the front.
And for Hall, and how good he's been at making use of situations that at first didn't seem like it would fall in his favor, but you put back-to-back second-place finishes together, and you've got a ton of consistency rallying behind that 23 machine for Category 5 Esports as his teammate watches on for Ross Harlow in the attempt to get by him by the end of this stage. But for Hall, it didn't lead a single lap at Chicagoland last Sunday, while 3 different drivers shared spots up front, leading a ton of laps. Schaefer leading that category with 40, then 37 for Steven Stempien in that fight with Hall for P6 on the racetrack, and then 38 to the race winner, Brandon Banks. But nowhere would you see Zachary Hall in that laps led category, and he's already doing well for himself now inside the top 6. And Hunter again tries in turn 1, but gets loose off the corner, and the downhill marker to turn 3 leaves Harlow with a bit more breathing room.
And nobody on that lap pitted there, which is going to be crucial, as the battle for P4 is going to heat up once again between Justin Herb and Stephen Harlow. Harlow's slowly been tracking back down that number 20 machine, trying to see if he can put up a battle here. What is now the final lap of this stage, you see the 16 has gotten a little bit of a gap on the 45. Hunter trying to be aggressive. Look how aggressive he is there in turn 5 to try and close in the gap. He's going to have 2 more miles to try and make something of that little bit of a gap he has.
You got to be wary of the front grip on this next-gen car. Harlow lost a bit of it down to turn 5 many laps ago, and it led Cedric Hunter with an opportunity to dive to the inside and complete the pass uphill in turn 6. He peaks to the bottom again, this time in turn 8. Unsuccessful in the attempt to psych Harlow out mentally. They ride through the carousel for the final time in stage number 1, and Harlow, despite all of the pressure from the Hello Kitty machine right behind, has not folded yet. Still many corners left to approach here at the America's National Park of Speed before the green and white checkered flag waves for stage number 1 at lap number 15. There's a bit of lap traffic up the road, and it may not be a factor at the end of it. I believe it's Robert A. Moyer Jr. who sits in 21st place through Canada Corner for the final time in the stage.
Oh, Harlow locks up.
Runs wide. Here comes Hunter to the inside.
Hunter had to check up to give him the space so he wouldn't just run right into the side of him. We'll see what he does here going on the final corner. The 16 feeling all this pressure.
Looking
there he goes.
Turn 14. Here comes Hunter, the send into the final
Watch the
corner.
crossover.
Harlow looking for the crossover, and it's a drag race off of the 14th turn to the uphill section and to the end of stage number 1. Harlow barely beats Hunter, winner in this stage at lap 15.
What a battle there. What a mistake from the 16, and good consciousness to be able to hold on after that one. What a great battle from those two, as the stage is still going for multiple positions. Justin Erb hangs on to P4 over Stephen Harlow. Zachary Hall over Steven Stempion for P6. And looking further back down through this top 10, Alex Muscarello about 1 second ahead of Eric Schaefer. That's going to be for the final points-paying position as those particular race cars approach the final corner. So you see these leaders still going around on the racetrack. The caution has not come out yet, but now as 48 is going to start reaching the start-finish line, you can expect the yellow flag to be thrown here by race control in a matter of seconds.
So Muscarella gets the last point, and there's the yellow flag right on cue. Eric Schaefer follows right behind in 11th. Bit of damage there to the Lowe's Chevrolet, but Ross Harlow barely gets by. And the final attempt from Cedric Hunter to take the lead off turn 14. And Hunter rides in front of Harlow now, so I don't know what's going on here. But Harlow, I believe, is credited with the stage win, his first of 2025. And despite Hunter's best efforts, Harlow just got him at the line in the drag race uphill to turn 14. And then to that start-finish line run-up. It's a long straightaway to that green and white checkered flag for the end of the stage. And a great job by both of them to keep on track position to avoid any deer mistakes to take them out. And they'll try to pick up the iRacing official pace car, but it will be a long wait. I mean, that pace car has to go around a 4-mile racetrack, so a lot of space to traverse here at America's National Park of Speed. But for the moment, we have our stage decided, and this will give the opportunity for Lawson Peel to get back into the fight. He worked so hard to move up into third in that first run of the day, and now he'll have to put in more work to get second and get the race lead. But it's a very nice setup for Lawson Peel to get in the game.
This is what he does, though, Kenneth. Every time at a road course, he'll do this. He won't set a lap time. He'll start wherever iRacing will put him, usually towards the front end of those that don't qualify because of his high I rating, and then just methodically start gaining some positions, getting up there. Then when you know it, boom, he's there inside the top 3, especially here with the stage. This gives him an ample opportunity to do something with it. I think if this race even went flag to flag, he still would have had a great chance. He had closed in to about 8 or so seconds behind the leaders. He definitely still had a shot, even if no stage was present. But now this just gives him ample opportunity to go 25 or so laps after we round out this caution flag to try and make something of it for the 9 car.
Well, he's got a good front row starting spot. and not literally front row, but he's going to be back in row 2, but with a good view with the 2 race leaders who have dominated the outing here from Road America and Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, as they have finally picked up the iRacing official pace car down to turn 5. And what we're watching here is Hunter still in front of Ross Harlow, which confuses me a little bit because at the end of the stage, Harlow should have been the victor, so he should be leading this pack of cars behind the pace car, but Hunter has moved in front. I don't know whether that was a race control decision. We'll see if we can get proper confirmation of that, or if Harlow is just trolling a little bit and just staying back in line and waiting for pit road to strike. But they are considering Hunter the lead car. And I don't know if maybe the iRacing system itself told Harlow to give up the position to Hunter there at the line. But they will be nose to tail, and with Hunter in command, and they will try to get the field onto pit road for the first time tonight, and probably the only time under yellow flag conditions.
From what I can see, Kenneth, those two, certainly at least the 45, decided to keep racing even after they both crossed the line and they approached some lap traffic, and that presented the 16 an awkward situation. And I think that is what gave the 45 the spot over the 16 before the yellow flag was officially waved, but I'm not sure league rule as far as how that's handled. Usually at an oval, there's not so much time between when the yellow flag waves and from when the stage actually ended, so it's never really been an issue. Definitely going to be an interesting one for Chris Progar and Steven Stempien to handle on that front, since the 16 was the stage winner, and from my understanding of it, should be the race leader.
I think, in a sense, iRacing may have caused this to happen in the sense of the system. I don't think race control wants it to be this way, but if they do have it that way, a black flag could be issued, and I don't know if either of them are taking any issue with this at the moment, but they are going to be like this, and Hunter will indeed lead the field into pit road for the first time, despite the fact that he did not win stage number 1. So Ross Harlow will get those bonus points added to his tally, one that is very much needed after a rocky first couple of races. It seems like things have finally tracked back on course for the 16 car. He finished in P3, like we mentioned, at Chicagoland last Sunday. And so the field will hit pit road for the first time from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Faint look to the right. And we are expecting drivers to stay out, considering that Richard Swavely, Warren Kyle Keith, Chris Progar, and James Kunkel all pitted during the first stage.
And those are drivers that are going to stay out, Kenneth. The 32 is going to assume the race lead. The 78, the 7, amongst others that have stayed out here. Not everybody is fully caught up to this pack, and just trying to find that 42 as he is approaching the final corner, just waiting to see if he's pit. But so far, we've had 3 drivers that have decided not to bring it down the pit lane, and amongst those are the 32, Richard Swavely, Warren Kyle Keith, and Chris Progar.
And Cedric Hunter just overshot his pit box by the merest of margins, and it looks like he may lose some time. Harlow does have the preferred pit box. Lawson Peel is up and away. Doesn't appear to be a long pit stop and a long visit for the Columbus, Mississippi native. It'll be a fight off pit road, and Lawson steals the spot away from Hunter, who made the small mistake, as Harlow leads him off pit road, but he will not have the race lead. Richard Swavely will be in control from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, with Warren Kyle Keith and Chris Progar sitting right behind in the attempt to hold on to some of this track position before it is all said and done. From Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, more to come from the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Road America. You won't want to miss a thing on the KBueno Racing Network. Back in just a moment.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Try out everything.
Welcome back to the National Park of Speed, Road America, the host for Race 6 of this 2025 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you on the call as Stage 1 is over. Stage 2 will kick off here with about 25 laps to go when we cross the start-finish line. The entire field, apart from 3, came down pit road, and now it's been reduced to just about 2 cars. Actually, no, still 3. So Richard Swabley, Warren Kyle Keith, and Chris Progar have elected to remain on the racetrack. They pitted in the several laps before the stage concluded. Warren Kyle Keith, as we see it, does have the freshest tires out of the 3 that did remain on the track. As for everyone else, 4th on back, they are all on fresh Goodyear Eagles and a splash of fuel. What will be interesting here, Francisco, is how the top 3 will play this restart firstly, but secondly, as long as we stay green, which we presume we will on a road course, where is their marker to hit pit road, and where will they end up on the alternate strategy?
I actually expect most of the field to take fuel only whenever they pit here for this green flag pit stop in this final stage. Tires still on these next-gen cars at road courses do not wear to the point where you are required to really change them. We saw everybody take the tires here under the stage because you didn't really lose much in doing so. And so I think during this green flag run, most likely, most of the field will look to not take tires. They'll just take fuel only, however much they need to get to the end of the race, and they'll go from there just to reduce the pit stop time and not have to worry about losing too much time on the racetrack. But a lot of that can change, especially when you consider a restart with alternate strategies going on in the front row. So the opening lap of this restart is going to be very crucial.
And these are 3 drivers staying out, Francisco, that were in very different positions when the stage caution came out, but all sort of ended up in the same real estate. We saw Chris Progar start inside the top 10, struggled a bit, but was in some great battles throughout the back end of the top 6, even a bit of the top 8 or so. Richard Swabley had sort of been hanging behind the curtains. Some good runs through the first stage, but sort of fell back late in the going. And then Warren Kyle Keith was running top 3 for maybe 75% of that stage right before he balled it up going into turn 3. Looked like things were okay, and he settled into 3rd still, but then made another mistake further down the road and then just lost more track position and then continued to make mistakes that put him behind the top 10. So all 3 of these guys do not pick up stage points, but they will try to get the big prize at the end, that checkered flag that none of those 3 possess in this 2025 season. As for everyone else behind, Ross Harlow did win stage number 1, his first of the season. He will lead the fresh tire batch with Cedric Hunter and Lawson Peel in the row right behind. Lawson Peel had moved from deep in the field to third place right at the end of the stage. Hunter gave his best punch out of turn 14 on the final lap of the stage to Harlow's back bumper, and it didn't work as Harlow executed the crossover and beat him in the drag race to the start-finish line. Plenty of good racing here from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin on our first of 2 road course races in this 2025 season. It's a shame that we probably won't see more of these great road courses on the schedule, but we're going to be oval-focused, oval-centric. But who can take the checkered flag? Still a long way to go. And one more stage with a bit of strategy to decide the end. Off of turn 14, which had been a trouble spot for plenty, including Warren Kyle Keith over the first stage, we'll greet them now in the uphill run to the start-finish line, where they will see the checkered or the green flag for the second time tonight. Warren Kyle Keith and Richard Swavely take us to the restart and the beginning of stage 2.
That's a great start for Richard Swavely. Was able to get well clear ahead of everybody else. There's a 78 trying to hold off the 16, who's almost, I think he got into the back of the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith. Is going to send Keith into the corner, trying to take the position away, but it looks like the 78 hangs on to P2, might try to challenge the 32 of Swavely for the top spot. Progar, it actually gets hit by Lawson Peel, almost gets sent into the 16 as Harlow clears for the spot. Swavely is sideways.
But he saves it right behind Warren Kyle Keith, who just gets by in turn 3, and it is pandemonium in the run downhill to turn 5. Cedric Hunter gets in front of Lawson Peel. Ross Harlow steps into second, as there are many side-by-side battles down the hill and onto those red and yellow curbing at the inside of the racetrack. Swavely still hanging onto his Toyota uphill to turn 6, and there's Lawson Peel. Another look as Swavely sends it into the gravel.
That's going to cost him basically his whole race, and the whole strategy just goes way off trying to hang on with those guys into the sand trap, and he's going to rejoin last of those runners back in the 19th spot as Robert A. Moyer Jr. goes off track himself back at turn 5.
But he gathers it up quickly. Both cars escape with no damage. And here's the battle for third as the top 2 have strolled away from the rest of the pack on 2 different tire sets. Ross Harlow on the fresh rubber, Warren Kyle Keith staying out for as long as he can, as Progar plays defense on Cedric Hunter, who is so fast in that opening stage. And there's Dusty Applin, who hits the wall on the inside off of the kink. He saves the race car right before Canada corner. That could have been disastrous to the braking zone.
No, but I think it got into his right front tire there, so he might have some damage. And Cedric Hunter made a mistake further up, Kenneth.
Looks like Hunter's in trouble. Here's a look from Dusty Applin, who gets loose off the kink and smacks the wall right to the inside of the racetrack. And what happened to Cedric Hunter? Looks like he just bobbled up, gave Lawson Peel the spot, but he is still not safe. Stephen Harlow, Zachary Hall right behind in the battle for 5th.
And here's what happened to Cedric Hunter. He was trying to make the move on Chris Progar for P3, going into Canada corner. You see he's approaching the back bumper of the 7, thinks about going down the inside, but it's an aggressive move and just has way too much speed, gets into Progar, tries to let Progar go to not make that pass, and there goes Lawson Peel.
It's Stephen Harlow right behind Chris Progar, had gotten into him, went wide off turn 1, and then got into Harlow as they re-emerged on the racing surface. And now Harlow gets some heavy left front damage, and he's off in turn 3.
Yeah, you can see it right here, just as there was contact between Peel. So this is not the first bit of contact Progar's had, trying to hang on to these positions. And then right here, as he rejoins it, boom, there's the hit to the left rear of the 11, sends the 11 into that wall, and tries to get it going once again, and then he actually eventually tows it. So right now, he's sitting in the garage as Justin Hendry goes off in turn 5 as well.
A tough break for Stephen Harlow, who last week came home 6th in that race from Joliet, Illinois and Chicagoland Speedway. And it had been a race where he did find himself hard into the outside wall right before turn 1, but despite the hit, he did not relinquish track position, and he stayed in the fight until the very end. And here from Road America, he may indeed go a lap down or more. It's something that it's very hard to achieve here at this track that clocks in at a little over 4 miles in length. It's such a long trip around this track to inevitably fall a lap down, but if Stephen Harlow remains on pit road as he is, he will eventually fall a lap down to Warren Kyle Keith on this second sector of the racetrack, just entering turn 12 and Canada corner. There is the gap between himself and the second place stage winner, Ross Harlow, back in P2, about a second behind. And despite the alternate call for Warren Kyle Keith, he isn't really bleeding a lot of time to Ross Harlow. In fact, he is actually faster than Harlow, sitting behind a couple of seconds now back. As they crossed the line last, it was a 2:13.5 for the St. Augustine, Florida native, and for Harlow it sat at a 2:14. Now they both sit at 2:11, so they both get faster laps here right off of lap 22. But even then, Warren Kyle Keith still nearly 2/10 faster.
Yeah, 2/10 faster on that particular lap over Harlow, as Hunter continues to stay right behind Lawson Peel, and Zachary Hall not too far behind with Dusty Applin in tow, as the top two are now 4 and a bit seconds clear of Lawson Peel. And everybody's going to have to stop at least once for fuel during this stage, and you would expect it to be fuel only, like we've talked about during that yellow flag. So how much fuel you take, how long you're stopped for, could play a crucial role as to when you feed out into the racetrack.
Well, this is where you play your hands depending on what the flop and the community card section looks like, because this track, as big as it is, and as we've seen distance carry over in huge gaps between race cars, I mean, it was nearly 10 seconds right in front of Lawson Peel at the end of that stage. There was no way he was going to catch up to the top two unless they had both crashed out basically, or had made several mistakes into the corners. But because they were clean, Peel basically had no choice but to settle in third. Now, depending on where you are across the racing surface in relative to the race leader, how does that alter, Francisco, your entry and what lap you decide to pull the trigger and come down pit road?
That it varies on drivers. Some drivers prefer to do it early, guarantee the fuel to the end. Others don't want to show their hand and let other guys dictate their strategy before deciding on what they want to do. So it's just depending on which side you want to be on. Do you want to be the one that dictates, or do you want to wait, see what everybody does, and then decide what move is best for you? There's really no wrong answer in road racing when you decide to do that, but sometimes it's just best to get it done out of the way. Whatever's going to give you clean racetrack and no traffic is really what you want to do in this situation. So let's say Lawson Peel continues to have the 45 of Cedric Hunter right behind him, or if Hunter eventually passes the 9 car, you might consider bringing it down pit road, get a little bit of clean racetrack, nobody around you, set some really good lap times, and you'll start to eat at the gaps the leaders are running.
You got to put yourself in a good spot, and that's a good point. I mean, you put yourself in clean air. I mean, the possibilities are endless if you're a driver like Lawson or Cedric Hunter or Ross Harlow. These guys have been so strong at the road course tonight. You give them some clean track, they're going to start running like they're in qualifying all of a sudden, and they're going to slowly improve on their lap times. But for a bulk of the field, a lot of them may not anticipate winning this race off of strategy because of the track position they sit in. And as we look at the back end of this top 10, that's Chris Progar holding on to the final spot in that respective group. Brandon Banks, the Chicagoland winner, trying to take the spot away, but still a couple of tenths of seconds off and not within striking distance. These guys probably are going to think about, where is the track position around me, being a little more realistic, not shooting for the stars and the race victory, but what they can gain in the mid-pack, because the top 10 at a road course will mean big things. And especially given the fact, Francisco, that the oval races see a ton of attendance. You see maybe 30 plus, maybe 35 plus driver fields at the ovals. At the road courses, a lot of guys are turned off by that. So you'll see many guys just not run the road courses, and they are fine with not getting any points in these types of races. So it concludes to a 23 car count for this race. And for a lot of these guys who have struggled in 2025, having a lesser car count means more opportunities for better point situations. So even for those who have not been in the best situation tonight, there is still a silver lining in all of it.
You're right about that, but man, do I love road racing. I wish more people either enjoyed it or just put in some effort with it, because it's enjoyable. And I don't mean that just necessarily with the next-gen car. I mean it with the Xfinity cars as well, and other race cars especially. So there's only 2 on this particular schedule. You have to wait all the way until Watkins Glen come playoff time, and later this week we'll be at the Circuit of the Americas for some 4-wide action. I'll be out there on the racetrack as well there. I've done every road race so far in 4-wide this season, so I can't wait to give it a shot there at Circuit of the Americas. But I love road racing, Kenneth. I really wish more people would participate in it. And for those that love road racing, good news is, on Tuesday, Portland gets added into the sim.
I was about to ask, are you going to be a buyer of Portland, or?
Yes.
Okay, because, you know, they do race Portland in the Xfinity Series. The IndyCar Series also goes to Portland International Raceway, so it's a really big addition. And for more of the road ringing side of things, Autodromo and Manos Rodriguez will be added to the sim in the near future. That is the Mexico City track that hosts F1. As Richard Safely goes off, that's for 14th place. Kip Beasley will take the spot away, and so will Craig Parks. But the Mexico City track will be added to the sim, which will be great for open wheel fans, but will also be a treat to the stock car racing fan base, as NASCAR will be in Mexico City for the first time ever this year in June. So very exciting stuff on the new frontier for stock car racing. And then even further down the line, Miami International Autodrome, the F1 hosts, will be in the sim. Don't know when, but in the next several months this year, it should be added. And you and I, Francisco, we're going crazy because not only are we getting spoiled with a redesigned Homestead Miami Speedway look that updates it to look like real life now, we're going to get another Miami-based track right around a big staple of the community in Hard Rock Stadium.
Oh, you love to see it. And that means we can continue that little competition we had at that event we went to there that had the F1 game sim up at the Miami International Autodrome. I still gotta beat your lap time, man.
Whoa, trouble! That's Lawson Peel off the kink.
Oh, and he's got some damage, I believe, on his right side. He might be okay. He looks like he got sideways. Doesn't look like the suspension's too damaged there. We'll get a look at it here. As he goes into the kink, all is good up until right there. You see the left rear just stick out, and that was enough to not have the car grip up the way he wanted it to, and gets into the wall. Doesn't look like he has some substantial damage on his race car, so he actually might be fine.
And there was also a challenge for the race lead in the span of the 5 seconds that transpired after Lawson Peel had gone sideways off the kink. Here's a better look at it from the right side of the screen, and it's turn 12, Canada corner, that gets Warren Kyle Keith off the racing surface into the gravel, and that's a textbook mistake that gives Ross Harlow the green light to push on by and retake the race lead. So although the Florida native had done a great job of staying up front track position-wise despite being on the older set of Goodyear Eagles, and the mistakes continue. And now Cedric Hunter will be third place with a chance to take away second.
And that's something you talk about every single road course race, Kenneth. It doesn't matter who's in it, what track it is. The biggest killer of anybody's race at a road course is mistakes. If you can limit your mistakes, especially the big ones, that's going to give you a really good finish. If you make one big mistake, you're probably going to lose the entire race on that mistake. It's just how effective it is at these road courses when it comes to your shot at the win. But if you make a small mistake, kind of like Lawson Peels, really, he might just be fine. He is still closing in on Ross Harlow time-wise. He ran a faster lap on the most recent lap, but on this current one, he's certainly running faster than Ross Harlow and closing in on second and third. So Lawson Peel, not out of it yet, but definitely a scare, and that's really the only time we've seen the 9 car make some kind of error in this race.
Yeah, he's been flawless, and the same goes for the guys of Cedric Hunter, Ross Harlow. A lot of them have been mistake-free over this race, and you can count the only real mistake of Ross Harlow to be a slight lockup in turn 5 that gave Cedric Hunter the lead, but even then, he didn't come off the racing surface, he didn't spin sideways, his car was fine, and he didn't pick up any damage.
Oh, look at that move by Hunter.
As he washes wide off the kink, it becomes nearly troublesome for the Mississippi native, and contact, door-to-door contact between Hunter and
he's gonna
Keith
miss this.
Down at turn 12, and Hunter will not see the apex at the corner. He'll lose 1 spot, nearly 2. That's his teammate, Zachary Hall, getting on by, and it's the attempted pass that Hunter moved to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith. Then it became outside, and then trouble.
Yeah, he tried to go to the left-hand side. Here's the replay of it. Some slight contact with Warren Kyle Keith and getting the left side tires into the grass, and that'll do it.
And he stays mostly on the track where that asphalt runoff area is, but when you're slowing the car down so much, you get a piece of the tires into the gravel, and that's nearly a death sentence if you hop back onto the gas pedal. So Hunter falls 2. He'll drop to 5th place, and now Lawson, the next challenger up, to take 2nd spot away from Warren Kyle Keith. All the while, Ross Harlow has extended his stay up front. 2.2 seconds now, the gap between Harlow leading the race and Warren Kyle Keith buried in 2nd place. And in the run to turn 5, does Lawson make a move downhill?
Oh, he's got a little bit of a run. He's going to look to the inside. Doesn't go for it on the initial dive, and he's going to look at that. Just better braking, but he's going to give it up to the 78. Let him dictate what happens here. 78 goes wide. He's going to block going up to turn 6. Peel's going to wait and almost get into his back bumper. So the 78 now starting to hold up this 9 car. They're both starting to gain back on Ross Harlow. Harlow either making some mistakes or just not setting the right laps he needs to, because both of these guys are gaining time. On the last lap in particular, Lawson Peel a 2.5 seconds quicker than the 16 of Harlow's. There's a 78 wide. That's going to give P2 easily to Lawson Peel.
And that's right before a difficult carousel corner where it could be nearly impossible to make a consistent pass done. So Lawson makes the move into second, and now 1.7 seconds separates him and the race leader, Ross Harlow. Peel has been blistering fast, even despite the mistake he made off of this corner, the kink, and he's on his way, trying to charge for his 3rd victory in his 2025 season, the only man in the company of 2 wins or more in 2025, and he'll look to add a 3rd at a type of track that he is very well versed at, and Warren Kyle Keith nearly getting eaten by the Wolves. Here comes Category 5 Esports. The tidal wave may take away 3rd.
Yeah, Warren Kyle Keith and those guys on the alternate strategy are starting to fall off just a little bit. And Zachary Hall, if he can get up to P3, what a run it's been for the 23, continuing it here on the road course. We talked about how he had a fast car there in the practice section and got caught up in some sort of thing there in stage 1 that prevented him from being able to make up positions and stay close to the front. You saw him with a better restart this time, closer to the front of the field. It's given him a chance to make something happen inside this top 5, and he's going to have some kind of shot here to go for a podium position.
The Newport, North Carolina native has impressed many in his first drop in the Hammah Cup Series season, and he's done so much good over these last several weeks. Those pair of second-place finishes that we've mentioned and other great runs across the series. And if we go by raw point standings, if we avoid any playoff talk and drivers that are locked in via wins, Zachary Hall would be the second-place car in standings. And look at this, outside peak on Warren Kyle Keith, unsuccessful, but he will look for the crossover here down in turn 5. They'll both get a piece of the gravel, still within each other's grasp, nose to tail.
Oh.
Hall dives it in the inside of turn 6. And
He was not
contact.
taking the block. Yeah, there's some more contact. They're not quite done out of it yet, as he almost gets shoved out to the grass. He's going to let the 78 through, and he's going to wait till his braking zone. Didn't want to give up all those spots. He's going to go back down for it this time. There's going to be some contact.
Some physicality to turn 7, and the overall send by Hall is unsuccessful. Hunter looking on the outside, negates the run down low, entering the carousel, and Hall will have to hit the reset button, but Warren Kyle Keith was having none of that. Hall made the attempted move to turn 6. They both made contact, and it took 3 attempts at dooring Hall out of the way for Warren Kyle Keith to get any sort of advantage, and he holds on to 3rd.
And we'll see if Hunter decides to make a move for himself. He's seen how fast the 45 is, and he's continuing to lose time to the top 2, and he knows that's his battle in this race, so he doesn't want to lose too much time out here as Warren Kyle Keith continues to hang on to the P3 spot. 4 seconds off the lead now, but cue up the jaws theme. Here comes Lawson Peel now within a second, 3/4 of a second behind your race leader.
And the last time by, he was faster by 1 second and 2/10. He is blistering as here comes Warren Kyle Keith on the alternate strategy down pit road, and the battle for the lead persists. Within 7/10 of a second, but Harlow may be under fire for the first time tonight. Lawson, who rolled off deep in this field after being the first not to take a qualifying time, is back where he's been accustomed to being here in this series, at the front with a chance to win. And he chops off 3 more tenths.
And I was just going to say, Warren Kyle Keith now has entered his pit stall, and it's going to be fuel only. No, some left side tires are going on for that 78 team. The Jackson will drop, and he's going to also put in some right side tires. So 4 tires are being taken here by the 78, and he is off and away.
So he is down onto pit road, and there are maybe 2 other drivers that need to make that stop if they haven't already. Chris Progar is still on the track despite being 17 laps out there, and then Richard Swavely, who has also yet to visit pit road on 15 lap old tires. He resides in 12th spot. So looks like Warren Kyle Keith, the first one to properly take the bait, come down pit road with 18 laps to go. Still a long way to go from Road America, as you look at 18 times 4, and that's still plenty of miles to deal with. 72 miles remain here from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and the gap continues to shrink within 4 car lengths between Peel and Harlow, and this mistake off of the kink maybe lost a bit of time for Harlow Chevrolet, the Drinkin' Bros Racing car that sits right behind with a chance to close in the gap further, entering turn 12 and into this final sector.
The pressure's going to be on the 16 once again. It's kind of like the stage finish, how we saw Cedric Hunter right on his tail, but also Lawson feels just different. He's that guy when it comes to these road courses, and it's just different seeing the Napa Auto Parts Chevrolet in your rearview mirror, just putting on that pressure. It's not going to be easy for the 16 here to hang on.
And these are the onboard looks from the 2 Chevrolets fighting for the lead. Lawson the last time by, 0.3 faster.
Very smooth under braking there for the 16 of Harlow, maximizing his engine braking. You can hear it in the revs. Lawson Peel probably doing the same. And you see him just peak a little bit lower, getting a little bit more air, trying to put the 16 off any way he can. But now that he's to his back bumper, getting around him is going to be more difficult. And that could invite Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter to get closer.
And Harlow isn't the faintest of heart. You saw that battle against Cedric Hunter earlier to end stage number 1.
Here's the dive bomb.
And as much experience as he has with Lawson Peel, they will be very aggressive but clean. A dive bomb in turn 5. Successful, wow. And Lawson Peel takes the lead for the first time in Road America into turn 6.
Nah, I didn't know if that was going to stick or not. That was a pretty deep dive by Lawson Peel from that far back, that far out of line. But never question Lawson Peel. As here's a look to see his move.
What a move by Lawson Peel to get to the inside. And Harlow gave him the space, gave him all that respect. And Peel made the move stick, had the car turning at the right point at the bottom end of turn 5. And after starting beneath the top 10 and many seconds behind Harlow and the race leaders, Lawson Peel takes control with 17 laps remaining. Harlow catches the grass in the kink, but there's still strategy. Still one more pit stop to go.
Yeah, but you just gave this 9 car clean air, the base, the front of the field, no traffic. He is certainly going to start putting on some lap times to try and make sure no one can do any kind of strategy against them. And here's the look at the move. It was pretty close. He was either going to lock up and go wide or make this pass, and it was the latter on this one. Watch this.
Oh my goodness.
And slows it down enough at the apex to still leave room.
And you know, a lot of times drivers will make that move and they'll lock up the tires and go wide. And it's a testament to how good Lawson is. You know, any driver also could make that move in this series, and Harlow could probably deal the same back in turn 5, but it was an absolute bomb from Lawson Peel that ended up sticking in his favor. And now he's got command as they dive to turn 3 with 15 laps to go next time by, as these drivers run on what is their 12th lap on the stint. So obviously one more pit stop to go, but they can go a little while before coming down to pit lane off of turn 14. So they will extend their stay here in Elkhart Lake throughout the racetrack as Lawson holds on to a 0.6 of a second advantage. And these two have put themselves in their own league. Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter are not threats from Category 5 Esports right now, 3rd and 4th, but more than 4.5 seconds off of the leading 2 cars as they head for turn 7 and the carousel. That's Robert A. Moyer Jr. will give way. He'll slide through the gravel in the attempt to let the leaders by, but harmless in the attempt to let everyone through, and he'll find Category 5 Esports right behind him. Lawson in this 2025 season leads wins with 2, and he's led every race at some point. He's led a lap in every single edition of this series in all 5 of his starts, and his most have come in the last 2 races. 17 laps at Chicagoland led, and then 19 laps led in his win at Auto Club Speedway, and these are his first few led from America's National Park of Speed with a chance to get win number 3.
And let's be clear, it's not more because he purposely does not qualify.
You know what? I think throw that idea out of the window that not qualifying is not going to help you, because in the case of Lawson, his confidence is so high, his skill level works out to where he can just have it happen every week. And if you look at where he started, every single race, you go from Daytona, where he rolled off 31st and finished second. The second race of the season at Las Vegas, rolled off 22nd to win. Then 21st at Phoenix Raceway to come home 11th. That's so far his worst finish of the season. Then the Auto Club win where he rolled off 18th. And then the Chicagoland Top 10 where he rolled off 24th. So every single race, Lawson has found himself deep in the field, but he's worked his way through.
Top 10 in almost every single race. That's as good as it can be. He finished 11th at Phoenix. If 11th is your worst finish of the season, Kenneth, you're having a great season. There's no way around it.
And in Sunoco Cup history, he is the all-time best driver, and he had won the previous 3 straight Sunoco Cup titles. So if you call this the extension of Sunoco Cup history, this is him just riding into another page of the book of accolades as Hunter dives in turn 5 and the peak under his teammate Zachary Hall. And I think if there is any other threat to Lawson's dominance so far, it is going to be these two. I mean, they have been the most consistent overall team, apart from Drinkin' Bros Racing, who have shared wins across 3 of their drivers. But this Category 5 esports camp have done so well for themselves, and should this race end the way it is right now, looking with 15 laps to go, even after strategy, this team will capture another collective top 5 finish. The last one coming 2 weeks ago at Auto Club in Fontana, California. So it's so awesome to see these two work the way they have. They've been so well on the chemistry side of things, and very happy to finish where they are. And they'll be 3rd and 4th right now in the run to the pit stops that we should see rather soon. This is the other close fight. This is for 6th place, 0.3 of a second. Stepien right behind Justin Erb.
And you know, Kenneth, with the next race being at the refreshed New Hampshire Motor Speedway, which we've not covered a race at that refreshed racetrack quite yet. This will be the first opportunity next Sunday. That racetrack historically produces a lot of yellow flags, and we mean a lot. We saw it in the 4-wide race. Pretty much every season we go there, there's just a bunch of yellow flags being waved, and usually it's dominated or really in control by Drinkin' Bros Racing. Every single time we go there, they have a great chance of winning the race. So that's another opportunity for them to try and continue their dominance this season before moving to the All-Star break at Martinsville Speedway, which I don't know if we'll have the broadcast up, because we'll be at the Homestead Miami Speedway that day.
Yeah, that's right on race weekend for us hometown natives of Miami, Florida, so that'll be a lot of fun. But the All-Star race should be a great time for all of these guys. And I think if there's anyone that will say something for that New Hampshire race, it's going to be this man right here, Steven Stempien. That's the hometown driver from Bethune, Massachusetts. He calls New Hampshire Motor Speedway home in the sim. It's the closest racetrack to him. And so if there is any driver that will look to dominate that race and get his first win of the year, it's going to be this guy right here in Stempien, who continues to hound on Justin Erb's TOW Racing Chevrolet. We've got a good gap back to the next car in line, Brandon Banks. You see Stephen Harlow in the shot, but Stephen is 4 laps down in 21st after we noted the crash that he suffered off of turn 1. And Brandon Banks is nearly 4 seconds off of Steven Stempien's back bumper, so still a long way to go. And going back to the road course conversation of things, Francisco, a Miami International Autodrome will be a big moment for us South Florida natives. I am very curious to see how it will be used in the sim, what series we'll see Miami host any official series races at, but it's going to be an exciting build, and I think I can't wait for the many NASCAR track art refreshes that we're going to get, from Homestead to maybe Las Vegas to Iowa to Darlington to Bristol, even a bit of Dover. So some of those tracks that we'll see before this season is over here in the DTH Cup Series.
Yeah, Las Vegas is for sure one of them. They wanted to get it in before the December build just a couple months ago, and they weren't able to, so it's for sure coming in this one. And you mentioned that there, Dover, Kansas, Homestead, Bristol, I think Darlington as well is getting a little bit of a refresh, as the 16 of Ross Harlow is going to dart it down to the pit lane. We'll see what he decides to do strategy-wise. But to finish what we were talking about there, the refreshes are going to be great. I mean, it gives me a better ample chance to work on my cameras with the updated artwork around the racetrack and the fencing more than anything, really. But I'm going to love the addition of Miami International Autodrome. I'll drive it with every race car I've got, really, with the prototype cars, the NASCAR race cars, the trucks, Xfinity Cup, the different ARCA versions, Formula One race car, of course. It's going to be fun just knowing where I am and saying, yeah, I've walked here, I've driven here, I've done just about everything around the Hard Rock Stadium.
You know what? I cannot wait for the scan, not really a scan, but, you know, the overall landscape of Miami Gardens and replicate it in the sim, because obviously you can look around at the outside areas from the racetrack and they're not detailed.
You might
obviously.
see the Walmart.
But yeah, you probably will see some sort of resemblance of the Miami Gardens area, which for us will be really funny because we'll just probably go off into the 836 or just go find a highway or go find some kind of fun little Miami thing that we know living here for so many years. So that'll be a ton of fun. As there is Harlow coming off pit road, he merges in 9th place right behind Richard Swabley. So the first car inside the top 5 to come down pit road. But I'm going to ask one more question regarding that Season 2 build that's coming next week. How hype is everyone for the ARCA car release? That's going to be amazing. iRacing has had the same ARCA car basically since its inception back in 2008. It was a scan of a 2009 NASCAR Nationwide Series Chevy Impala SS that was raced by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and several other junior motorsports drivers back in the Nationwide days. And it's been like that ever since. But finally, iRacing has gotten the licensing for the 3 manufacturers of Chevy, Ford, and Toyota for the replicated realistic models of the ARCA cars. That's going to be so much fun when they come out. I think that's going to be the most hype selection of content that comes out. I think Portland will take a back seat to the ARCA Menard Series cars as Lawson Peel, the race leader, comes on to pit road.
You're right. The ARCA cars are extremely popular car here. Just so many people use them, and really it just provides some great racing all around in every single racetrack we go to. And having the new version with the Gen 6 Cup car body, if you will, it'll provide some really great racing at the bigger tracks. You could probably find them to be a little bit more aero, a little bit more modern, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see how it actually drives in the sim, to see if it does compare a lot to a Gen 6 race car. But also, just remember last year what led to the Gen 4 car existing on the sim. And that's a coding error on the ARCA cars that gave it 900 horsepower, and that brought us the Gen 4 cars.
Yeah, and speaking of the Gen 4 cars, we are going to get an actual realistic Gen 4 car sometime down the future. They released a work-in-progress image of the cockpit of the Gen 4 car, which is going to be a full circle moment for iRacing just because, you know, they came off of the Papyrus days from back in the early 2000s. They made NASCAR Racing 2003, one of the most famous NASCAR games of all time. Still holds up to this day. Plenty of people still race on that sim, and there's still a dedicated community to NR 2003. So to have a realistic Chevy Monte Carlo, a realistic Ford Taurus, it takes everyone back to those days of 2003. It's going to be a really cool full circle moment for the sim, and I'm sure a big celebration to come along with that. And also some emotional moments probably for some of the drivers in this series. I mean, you talk about Brandon Banks, Lawson Peel, Steven Stempy, and the likes of drivers that have been racing since the dawn of 2000 and the millennia. So these are guys who firsthand experienced the online community of NR 2003 that will get a chance to race those cars in 2025, hopefully, or 2026.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff to look forward to in the sim in the next couple of months, not just in oval racing, but all around as well. I can't wait to see what Season 3 or even towards the back end, towards Season 4, to see what those provide. That's probably one more so where we'll see the Miami International racetrack at the Hard Rock Stadium. We could get some more surprise visits down the line, maybe some more track refreshes. There's certainly other racetracks that you could definitely look at and say it could be refreshed. I think one of the ones that comes to mind is the Talladega Super Speedway. It had an update back in 2021, Kenneth, but I think the most glaring thing that stands out to me about Talladega is the fact that it does not have a double yellow line. It has a single yellow line like it did almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, and they did a bit of an update to that track art-wise because of the eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series that happened during the pandemic. They had did art upgrades to a bunch of tracks on the service that the Pro Series Invitational was going to. I mean, Coda was one of them. They had updated logos on the track. Darlington got a refresh for that Pro Series Invitational race that featured the next-gen cars for the first time the same day in May that the next-gen manufacturer cars were revealed to everyone in real life. And so that's really the last time that plenty of the ovals on the NASCAR side of things got art updates. So to see the Phoenix update recently, the Watkins Glen track update for the art side of things, and now to see New Hampshire, and then to see the further updates that should come our way on Tuesday, as many of them as they end up being, it's going to be really exciting to have a more realistic look, especially at tracks like Vegas and like a Homestead Miami Speedway, who have been missing that special realistic touch for a couple of years now. I mean, you and I, Francisco, we could just highlight all of the tiny details of the racetrack that iRacing would try to make realistic to 2025, but
yeah,
from the work in progress images, they looked wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they get to... Unfortunately, I'm also glad they get to include the updated Homestead Miami Speedway. I miss those Turn 1 stands. That's where I sat the first time I went to a NASCAR event, in the Turn 1 stands of Homestead Miami Speedway. They're not there anymore. The suite is still there. They got the, as you see, Kunkel going through the grass as Warren Keith and Cedric Hunter got through. They still got the suite over there, and they have, just below that suite, they have the bar that they were able to make down there towards the end of the main grandstands, and also the updated paint on the inside, a bunch of more palm trees. That's something I noticed in the pictures, a bunch of palm trees, which, if you've ever been to South Florida, that's basically the only tree that exists is a palm tree or a coconut tree. They all look very much similar, but I can't wait for it to drive there and just get there, be physically there in 2 weeks. I'm excited for the Homestead Miami Speedway. And I can't wait for 4Wide to have the championship race there in a couple of months with the updated racetrack as well.
Yeah, and you know what will also be a talking point about that refresh track that involves those Turn 1 stands? It's a nightmare for the drivers. It's fine for us because we don't have to deal with it, but the glare of the sun in Turn 1, it's going to be exacerbated. It's going to be made even worse by the fact that those Turn 1 stands aren't there. And the drivers in real life have already experienced this already several times. With those stands being gone, there's more open space for that sun to peek in through those metal stands that hold up the Turn 1 suites, and to give drivers even more of a hassle getting visibility down entering Turn 1. So that will be another talking point for us if we get a sunset race, how the sun will affect the drivers' visibility down the line, and with the new lighting effects, how that will also come into play.
That's another thing, actually. That's a great pull right there, the lighting changes.
Yeah, they're going to have new sky effects and new overall lighting as they try to rehaul their graphics package in the iRacing sim. So, I mean, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great to have all of those elements combined together to give us great storylines in this season, in 4Wide, or across the iRacing service, no matter what league it is or what official series race is going on. It's going to be great. Season 2 comes out on March 11th, Tuesday, so all of those updates, the Arca Menard Series cars, the Portland International Raceway, some new lighting updates, the Debris Refresh Phase 2 will come out. GTP will get a new tire physics model, which should make it a little more realistic to what you see in real life. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun to see as Justin Erb takes over the race lead. He's led a couple of laps already, but that's because he has not visited pit road. He's been out 18 laps on his stint with 10 laps to go, so he's either hoping that he can make it on fuel or just extending his stay to lead a couple of laps and gain some points. Lawson Peel entered pit road approximately 2 laps ago. He's now stifled back a bit, but he's in second place. Chris Gabot is the second car that still has yet to come in. He sits in third as of right now, race high for him. And Ross Harlow, who had been playing catch-up to Peel over the last bit of the run before the green flag pit stops, he's now even further back down the running order. So it's going to be an even more of a tall task for Harlow to find his way around the Columbus, Mississippi native who's just exiting turn 14 now. But even then, Peel's still 10 seconds off of Justin Erb, who's going to extend this as long as possible to look for his first win.
And Warren Keith moments ago, Kenneth, went off the racetrack trying to race the 45 of Cedric Hunter. Here's the look of it. He was being defensive, and right there just locks it up. Hunter goes by, and the 78 goes off in the racetrack. It's been off a couple of times tonight, Kenneth. It's not been a clean one for Warren Keith.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been a little frustrating for him behind the wheel. I mean, when you make mistakes like that And you think to yourself, oh, there has to be a way that I don't make these mistakes. And, every corner is different here at Road America. Every lap is different. So the same braking marker that you take into a certain corner one lap is probably not going to act the same way as the second lap or the third lap or the fourth lap. So
especially with the dirt.
yeah, and when you try to build a rhythm here at a road course, it can be a little bit difficult when the car doesn't act the same way it does the lap before. And that's what makes the road course ringer so great. The way they're able to step into a rhythm, get the muscle memory working, and master the types of turns, the types of braking markers that you'll find here at this specific track and many other road courses across the sim. Because you can make the case that Watkins Glen is an easier road course to drive when you compare it to a lot of the others that NASCAR races now and even those road courses across the sim. But even then, that track still comes with its set of challenges with as high of a speed rate as you're going across that track. And then Road America, in the way that it is, at 4 miles long, it's a really lengthy lap. And you've got plenty of different corners, from Canada corner here to high-speed kinks to a smooth carousel turn to a high-speed turn one. I mean, different types of corners catch drivers off guard. And for Warren Kyle Keith, the racing gods have not been kind to him tonight.
I will say that Watkins Glen is probably easier to most of the drivers, Kenneth, because they grew up with the NASCAR games that already had it in. For so long, NASCAR games only had Sonoma and Watkins Glen. If there's any racetracks that you expect most people to be decent at road course-wise, it's probably going to be Watkins Glen and Sonoma. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and for the Sunoco Cup Series' final season, which a lot of these guys were a part of here in DTH Cup action, as Lawson Peel does take the lead. Justin Erb finally makes the call for pit road with 8 laps to go. So Peel will take control by 7 seconds over Ross Harlow. Back in P2, Zachary Hall will take away third. The 2 road course races in that final Sunoco Cup season were Watkins Glen and Sonoma, the 2 typical NASCAR road course races that even then, some guys on the oval side of things don't really like to race at, and they don't have a lot of fun participating in, but they know those tracks more than the others. You put a Charlotte Roval in there, or you put a Road America in there, you put a Chicago street course in there, you're throwing a lot of drivers off. Even the regulars at Sonoma and Watkins Glen, they'll be like, what is this? This is a new track that I have to learn. And so it's a challenge for everyone. But you got to give credit to everyone in this field, all 23, for making this race tonight and giving their all, even with the challenges that Road America presents.
And you know what works really well, what helps you really learn a racetrack, is when you do a track walk. And I did that 2 months ago over at the Chicago Street Course. I never ran a race there, but I wanted to make sure I was prepared, and I did a track walk.
How did you do a track walk? Well, you were there.
You
were there.
Yes, I was there, yes.
No walls or anything. Did you walk the entire track, like, just by memory?
Yes, I did. Yes, I absolutely did, yes.
I really applaud you for that, because I mean, the time that you went, it was probably like negative 18 degrees or something, but
it was snowing that particular day, but it was great.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of those tracks that you can actually go on to and be like, hey, this is, I can just make a walk here casually.
That's what I was doing the entire time.
Or any security guards trying to throw me out the place.
That's what I was doing the entire time. I was looking at it and trying to remember what it looked like on the broadcast, saying, yep, that sign was here, this is where this happened, and those things just going on in my mind. I feel like I'm not the only one that does that with certain racetracks, especially street courses, because you look around and you know what you've seen it in TV, how you normally look at it, and then you're looking around and it's all normal.
One thing that I thought was really funny was one of the last times I went to the Miami downtown area, and you're right by Biscayne Park, or the Bayfront Park, and you're right next to the Kaseya Center, the home of the Miami Heat. You're right next to the ocean, Bayside, very beautiful area of the Miami landscape. Lots of tourists go there. But you go to Bayfront Park, and I was sitting in the middle of the big square, or the big circle, where the water fountain is in the middle. They're doing construction on it right now. And I thought to myself, how in the world did IndyCar drivers, back in the old kart days, drive this circle as a mini carousel back in, like, 2002? I don't know how these drivers did that through the Champ Car days, and looking at the streets, I'm like, how do you find an open wheel car here and put it in a place where it can run fast? But it's sort of cool when you're in that little piece of history and you're like, oh, this kind of happened here.
And more recently, in 2015, the Formula E races ran around that same area, Kenneth. So, I mean, it happened again. And unfortunately for Formula E, they won't be running there. They'll be at the Homestead Miami Speedway.
Well, I think Miami locals and the government itself will be really happy to see that Formula E is not trying to take away the streets for a day, and they'll be at a proper racetrack. But Homestead Road Course is great. It's a very great road course, tons of good challenges in there, and even a bit of elevation change. You'd be surprised, despite the fact that Miami itself is a relatively flat area of the United States.
Just so that the viewers understand, the airport that I practice at has an elevation of 3.
Yeah. That tells you all you need to know. I mean, you look down the horizon and you do not see a valley. You don't see a hill in sight. All you see are buildings and just flat land. Here's a look at Dusty Applin in his second career DTH Cup Series start. Rolled off 17th and had a bit of a skirmish with the inside wall right here at this very kink. But he has worked his way up nicely, and after crashing last week at Chicagoland and having to deal with a poor finish, Applin has resurged in this one. 5th place with 7 laps to go should he hold on to it.
And looking a little bit further up from this, it's slowly Zachary Hall catching up to Ross Harlow for P2. That could be a battle coming to the checkered flag here with now 6 laps to go in this race. Zachary Hall trying to see if he can get a 3rd straight 2nd place finish, which is along the likes of, but not quite like Christopher Bale capturing 3 straight wins.
Yeah, he's been consistent, but maybe Hall a little bit bittersweet in the fact that he's sitting second fiddle to the eventual race winner. But regardless, for Hall, it will be a great points day. He remains in 3rd, and he has pulled away from his teammate Cedric Hunter, so no more pressure from his fellow Category 5 Esports teammate. That's Applin, the last car in the top 5. And then Warren Kyle Keith, who has found some mistakes over this race, but will still escape for the most part with a top 10 finish and some good points to go along with it. 6th place for him. Back in 7th is the TOW Racing Chevrolet of Justin Erb. Eric Schaefer, Phoenix winner, back in 8th. Steven Stepien back in 9th. And this is a good battle building up for the final spots in the top 10. That's Brandon Banks right behind.
And Stepien has been struggling the last couple laps. I've heard him in the voice chat just frustrated, just wanting this race to get over with. And that's what it's like for some guys, especially after these long of a race. You've already been running 40 laps around Road America. 40 laps doesn't sound like a lot, Kenneth, but when you think about it, we've been racing for almost 2 hours. It'll definitely be 2 hours by the time the checkered flag falls. 2 hours, that'll definitely drain you. Yeah. Think about this, the NIS Coke 600, that's a tough one.
It's a very grueling race, and, you know, thankfully this isn't full length. We would be maybe at 90-ish laps here at Road America, but 45 is still a pretty decent tally, and for everyone who have found out how tough this racetrack is to drive behind the wheel, and they're probably thankful that the final 5 laps are upon us, but that's still nearly 20 miles of action, over 20 miles of action here at Road America, given just how long this track is in comparison to the others on the sim. Lawson, in the update, still leads by 7.6 seconds, so he has pulled away, although Harlow the last time by was 0.07 of a second faster. But those small increments aren't really going to affect the overall battle for the lead when the gap is that sustained. And even then, this time by, Peel just picked up 2 more tenths, and actually 0.7 of a second on Harlow, who was slowed down dramatically. And Zachary Hall now with a chance to take away that 2nd place spot. Harlow has been falling out recently, and I think, Francisco, it may be down to some of that front end grip. You don't get as much bite in the corners. And another lockup, this time in turn 3, gets Hall within striking distance.
Yeah, if you keep locking up, that's not going to help your front grip, and the tire's going to want to keep locking up on that same spot. So Zachary Hall's going to have a chance with some draft here to make a move into turn 5. Will he go for it now? You see the 16 kind of drift down to the middle, preventing any kind of dive bombs here. They're going to have some lap traffic up ahead. I believe that's the number 28 of Casey Knighton just in front of them. Knighton is the only car 1 lap down in this race in the 16th spot. He could play a role in this battle. We'll just have to see. But also, Kenneth, it's important to remember, especially with this race leader, it is not over until the checkered flag itself.
It is not, and I know exactly what you're referring to as Casey Knighton lets the 2 drivers by, sitting 2nd and 3rd. In the 4-Wide Racing Series in Season 5, we raced here at Road America, and Lawson was in control by many seconds. And on the white flag lap, he made 1 mistake. That was his only mistake all race long. as he downshifted a little too early. The car wheel hopped and it spun down the hill in turn 5. He still had the race lead, but the second place car in Daniel Michel was rapidly approaching, and then uphill to turn 6. Peel overshoots the corner, enters the grass area, and that's where Michel takes the lead on the white flag to take his first career 4-wide racing win. So yes, you are correct. While it's 8 seconds between Peel and Harlow, and will be made even worse by the fact that Harlow is playing a bit more defense now, worrying more about Zachary Hall than he is the race leader, it only takes one bit of a bobble, one hiccup, and this race changes on its head. And with 4 laps to go at the stripe, this is the best battle we're watching right now. The second best for 5th place between Dusty Applin and Warren Kyle Keith. Zachary Hall, the North Carolinian, trying to catch up to Harlow.
And just remember also, the track is extremely dirty, the entire last sector. Just several parts of the racetrack full of dirt and sand that can still play a role in these closing laps.
And over that last lap through the final several corners, I mean, you saw Peel get a bit loose there because he caught all of those gravel marbles at the bottom end of this track. Oh, and there
the
goes
16
Harlow
goes off
in turn 3. And there goes Zachary Hall for second.
An easy second place here for Zachary Hall if he's able to hang on. Just kept putting the pressure on Ross Harlow, and eventually that lockup and the lack of front grip, it was going to catch the 16 off, and we're going to get a look here with the replay, just exactly what happened. We were just talking about it. You keep locking up that front tire, Kenneth, it's going to keep catching, and it's going to keep locking up in that same spot, and with all that pressure on him this time, the 16 folds.
And that was a really big overcook into turn 3. We usually see a bit of a shallower pace from Ross Harlow, especially entering that corner, but he caught a lot of pace, and it was very heavy entering the corner, so just could not make the corner apex. And so Zachary Hall takes away P2. That's James Kunkel going off right behind him. Very sketchy there in turn number 7. I think that's turn 8, actually, heading into the carousel. But now Hall will have to pick up on 9 seconds with 4 laps to go over Lawson Peel, who made a mistake right here at this kink, caught a bit of that grass, and found himself at the inside wall, but somehow escaped without any damage to his Chevrolet. It's a far cry from the earlier incident with Dusty Applin, where he still remains with that right front damage that he picked up from that specific slide. But Peel in the driver's seat with a 9-second advantage and 3 laps to go at the stripe.
And Warren Kyle Keith is all over the Chevrolet Camaro rear bumper of Dusty Applin. He's going to get a run here towards Canada Corner.
And will he make the dive? He's overshot this corner a couple of times. Does he risk it here? Gets a bit to the grass, but he's got the inside, trying to get Applin to flinch.
Oh, and there goes Applin wide.
And there goes Warren Kyle Keith. So 5th place decided in one fell swoop. Warren Kyle Keith takes away the 5th spot in stellar fashion. And Applin's still a chance to respond, but he is falling drastically, 0.6 of a second. And behind the road, 7th place. Good battle here. Eric Schaefer, Justin Erb, just for these last spots in the top 10.
And Steven Stempion just about spun out, and it's going to give Brandon Banks an opportunity to try and work on P9. As Schaefer had a bad exit off the final corner, there goes Erb by him again.
Erb to the outside, makes the sweeping pass to the start-finish line, and back to turn 1. This battle will remain up for auction within these final 3, and then even further down the lane, 9th place, undecided. Here's Brandon Banks making the dive to turn 1, negates his opportunity, and follows back in line with the Massachusetts native. Things still not over by any means necessary in these final 3. We talk about just how much points matter, how track position has played a big role in this race already, and for the bulk of guys who have spent a majority of this race bouncing between different placements of this race, they're now in a spot where they can get some good points realistically out of the only road course race of the regular season. Schaefer falls back, cannot get retaliation on Justin Erb's pass, and even then some a bit wobbly there out of turn 5, a bit ill-advised, and Steppy and Banks will start catching up. Their battle still within 2 car lengths.
And don't count out Cedric Hunter on being able to catch up to Ross Harlow. We know Harlow's been struggling on those tires and just does not have the grip, and Hunter is still pretty quick around this racetrack, so that could be something we see coming to the line here, the battle for P3.
Yeah, but the gap still sits at around 3.3 seconds, so off the front nose of Hunter's number 45 Toyota Camry, he can see a bit of Harlow's machine. It's not like he's out of it, but it's still a pretty decent gap to build up. And over the last couple of laps, Harlow has been slower. So Hunter will have at least somewhat of a chance to make this an interesting fight within the final 8 or so miles from America's National Park of Speed. Lawson Peel stays up front. He remains the fastest car on the racetrack. 2:12.3 puts him 8.7 seconds above Zachary Hall. So the gap has plateaued a bit. It hasn't necessarily extended by much. But Lawson Peel trying to put this Chevrolet in cruise control mode to get his trifecta, a third win of this 2025 season over the first 6 races. An absolutely amazing accolade for the Mississippi native, who has already had a win at Auto Club, then one at Las Vegas, and now getting 1 of 1 on the road course.
Just been impressive. Lawson Peel, every time we show up to road courses, Kenneth says him and whatever he has, whatever he knows, it just always clicks for him. And he's always going to be out there competing for the race win. It doesn't matter where he starts, what happens to him in these races. You cannot count out that 9 or 12 car unless he's sitting in the garage not being able to move his race car. And we still have a lap and a half to go, which is why you probably see him backing it down just so he doesn't run the risk of making that sort of mistake.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do when you're all by yourself in no man's land is push the car a little too hard for what's necessary, and with a 7.6 second gap, Hall is going to give it all he's got in these final few, but for Peel, all he has to do is stay where he's at, keep all 4 tires on the racing surface, and he should be a race winner. There is lap traffic right in front of him, and it's Brad Fulham who sits in 15th, the last car on the lead lap, and it's up to Peel to make that executive decision of whether he wants to make the pass complete on Fulham or whether he wants to stay in line and remain calm. Probably those memories of that 4-wide Road America race coming into the 4A and trying to make sure he does not replicate the same situation. Off turn 14, Lawson Peel runs up the hill. He'll see the white flag from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
I would expect him to begin his braking, or at least his lifting and coasting, halfway down that back straightaway just to avoid any issues.
And here's the battle for 9th, still ongoing. Brandon Banks fell to a second of a deficit to Steven Stempion, and now through Canada Corner for the penultimate time for them. They'll see James Kunkel, the lap car, in the way. That could affect things for Stempion. It slows him down a bit. The 2 Chevrolets get on by, and Banks with one more gasp at getting 9th place, but both of them should result in the top 10, while Zachary Hall has found his way by Ross Harlow off a mistake, possibly in turn 1.
Yeah, he made a mistake all the way back in the final corner, and that's allowed him to be able to catch back up to this 23 to try and make a move on the final lap. But Lawson Peel, this time he makes it through that corner, so he is still going strong in the front. So as Harlow and Hall will battle for P2 on this final lap. Looking further back, and Cedric Hunter is starting to close into that group as well. Stempion and Banks has gone around into the wall.
And they find trouble. There's Banks sideways off turn 1. And Stempion will have 9th confirmed. So some more drama in this final lap. Banks made the send in the first corner, but he washed out wide, got the grass, and Stempion had nowhere to go. They make contact, and Banks goes for the spill. But up front, off the carousel for the final time, Lawson Peel took command early in this race off of a masterclass send in turn 5 to Ross Harlow for the lead off of strategy. And the man who hasn't taken a qualifying lap basically this entire season will not be fazed by any sort of start beneath the top 10. He files out of Canada Corner for the final time, and we'll see the final several before he emerges to turn 14, right before he catches to the lap car of Brad Fulham. The fight for second still ongoing, but the king of the road courses, Lawson Peel, remains on the throne and gets his trifecta in 2025. Checkered flag in the air, Lawson Peel, the winner from Road America.
And Zachary Hall is able to hang on for P2 in the run to the line. We'll get a replay later of that battle they had in the final portion. There's the second place spot once again. Applin trying to catch back up to Warren Kyle Keith, but it's not going to be enough for the top 5 position. Warren Kyle Keith, as long as he can hang on to the line, will be able to hang on for a 5th place position. Eric Schaefer closing in on Justin Erb in the final corner, trying to take away the 7th spot. That'll be a run to the line, but it looks like Justin Herb might be able to hang on. And Brandon Banks will round out your top 10.
Some great fights till the checkered flag. Until the exhaustion of this 45-lap race. Lots of respect given all across the board. But Lawson Peel finds himself in victory lane for the 3rd time this year. And for the 2nd time over the last 3 races, it's Lawson Peel and Zachary Hall finishing 1st and 2nd.
Deja vu for Zachary Hall, not the good kind.
And the celebrations ensue for the Columbus, Mississippi native who makes it 5 in a row for Drinkin' Bros Racing. They have not lost a race since Daytona when Timothy Stubblefield took the checkered flag. And Lawson will take his victory lap across Road America, ensure that he would not put up a mistake in those final few laps, and it pays off. Lawson Peel, for the 3rd time this season, will visit Droppin the Hammah victory lane, and this time it's on the road course.
Here's the view of the battle for P2 as they were approaching the final sector. Zachary Hall was pretty good ahead of Ross Harlow, and then Ross Harlow right around here makes a big dive to the inside with a lot of speed. Hall has to give him the space. They're making contact, spinning up their rear tires as they're going through the dirty part of the racetrack. Harlow's trying to find it around the outside now, and he tries to see if he can do something here as far as cutting over and getting the gap on the 23, but Zachary Hall, with some excellent defense here, hangs on in that pressure situation and holds off the 16 for P2.
What a fight between those two. Lots of clean and hard racing, and Harlow tried to beat Zachary Hall to the stripe, but I guess that's a bit of karma. He beat Cedric Hunter, the fellow Category 5 Esports Camry, in a drag race to end Stage 1, this time just a little bit too far behind, but great finishes for all of them regardless. Hall and Harlow again matched their best finishes this season with 2nd and 3rd. While Lawson Peel achieves 1st for the 3rd time. And there are his Drinkin' Bros Racing teammates who captured top 10s. Eric Schaefer with 8th. Brandon Banks with 10th. And it's a long celebratory lap for Lawson, who took to turn 5 to celebrate, just like many do here at America's National Park of Speed. And Lawson commands the final half of the race. We almost imagined that there would be some drama within the green flag pit stops, but it seems as though it didn't really matter for Peel, who only amped up his advantage over Ross Harlow after they came off of pit road. And fate lets Lawson win another one, as he will take his Chevrolet to the start-finish line and continue his celebrations on his 3rd race victory of 2025. We'll take a look with your unofficial race results from Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and Road America, the first road course race of the regular season, where Peel remains victorious. 3rd career DTH Cup Series win. Zachary Hall gets his 3rd consecutive 2nd place finish, and the win is knocking on the door for the Newport, North Carolina native. Ross Harlow gets his best finish of the season for the 2nd week in a row, 3rd place for the 16 car. Cedric Hunter lines it up in 4th. Another great outing for Category 5 Esports as a whole. Warren Kyle Keith, despite his mistakes over tonight, ends up with a top 5 finish. Dusty Applin finally gets a result worthy of his speed over his first 2 starts of the 2025 year. He ends up 6th. 7th goes to TOW Racing's Justin Erb. Eric Schaefer back in 8th. Steven Stepien in 9th, just barely holding off Brandon Banks after some drama in turn 1. Back in 11th, you'll find Chris Cabot in the 25 Toyota. Richard Swavely back in 12th. Kip Easley finishes in 13th place. Craig Parks rolls it off 14th. Brad Fulham 15th. Casey Knighton back in 16th. And a ton of these guys falling a lap down or more at the checkered flag. Robert A. Moyer Jr. 17th. James Kunkel in 18th. Stephen Harlow 19th. Chris Progar rounds out the top 20. And then the final 4. Justin Hendry 21st. Sean Kalist, Alex Muscarella, and Timothy Stubblefield, who we did not see take the green flag tonight, although he did register into the session. So that brings us to Droppin the Hammah victory lane, and for the third time in 2025, we will be joined by the driver of the 9 machine. Lawson Peel takes his 3rd win of the season.
Appropriately.
And a victory lane soundtrack to go with it. Lawson, congratulations, your 3rd victory of the season. First 3 wins over the last 6 races. How momentous has this overall stretch been for you, which includes tonight where you lead 13?
Oh, it's been huge. Just some good tracks for me along the way. Auto Club, obviously, and this one's another one. I miss racing here a lot. Miss watching the race on TV here as well. It's another one that I hate. You can't see the NASCAR cars go around here anymore because it's a great road course in my opinion. So just glad they decided to put it on the schedule, and a lot of fun and plenty of guys that were really fast tonight. So made for just a really good race, and happy to get 3 here, and I think 5 in a row for DBR. So we're excited about that.
It's another race where you start without a qualifying time put on the board, and you still reemerge as the top contender in that final stint. You had to deal with some cars, though, on the way there. Of course, Ross Harlow, some great fighting between you two, and then the likes of Cedric Hunter, Zachary Hall, in the midst of that top 5. What seemed to be the biggest challenge of getting your way through the field and trying to set up nicely for the stage 1 result and then moving onwards to that final stint?
Yeah, it was very hard to pass, obviously, and then all those guys you mentioned, Ross was really fast, Cedric and Zachary were very fast, Warren was fast as well, so got probably a little lucky just navigating through as well as I did with just opportunities opening up for me, because it was hard to create opportunities to pass, and certainly hard to execute the pass when you did have an opportunity. So just did a good job of that. Had a couple scary moments along the way, but nothing too bad. Never really felt like I really had to just push the car to the limit and get desperate. So that just kept me kind of nice and calm and in a good rhythm. And that's when I do well, is when I can just stay calm and relaxed and just focus on repeating the lap and getting in that rhythm. So if I get kind of flustered and feeling like I got to push, that's when I start making mistakes. So just tried to stay in that headspace as much as I could.
We talked about it, just what could happen in those final laps. I didn't want to bring up any bad memories for you here at Road America, but here you stay mistake-free, you end up with a race victory, and we move on. I mean, final race now before this All-Star break at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, but you and DBR have all of the momentum on your shoulders. What is it going to take to keep that train rolling for the rest of the year?
Well, Loudon, I think that's a popular track with a lot of guys in the league. Certainly Stympian, probably the Harlow brothers. But I got some teammates that really enjoy it as well. Schaefer is going to be good there. So I'm sure Cedric and Zachary are going to be good there as well. So that, I'm excited to go there because I think that's a track that's improved racing-wise in the next gen throughout these last couple updates. It was really not a fun track to drive in this car. It's gotten a little better. So last time or two that we've been there, if you can just kind of get some green flag runs in, it's a good race. So, but yeah, there's going to be plenty of guys that are excited to go there. So we'll see who can get the win.
And it's going to be with a refreshed art model for New Hampshire, so we're going to get an updated look. That'll be a ton of fun. But Lawson, on your 3rd win here in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series to kick off the year, who makes it all possible, and who do you got to thank for tonight's W?
Yeah, thanks to you and Francisco, Keela, and everybody at the KBueno Racing Network for everything that y'all do for us. Thanks to all the admins in the league and everybody that helps put this on, all my DBR teammates. Thanks to Joe Sanchez for doing my paint for me. And Paul set up shop and everybody that watched tonight. So appreciate everybody.
Well, Lawson, we appreciate the time, and probably won't be the last time we'll see you in victory lane here this year. Congratulations on the W from Road America. Go enjoy the celebrations, and we'll see you at New Hampshire in 1 week time. Congrats on the W.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Lawson Peel takes the victory here from Virtual Road America. We'll step to 2nd place, where Zachary Hall, Francisco, gets his 3rd consecutive P2 finish.
It's a 3rd consecutive 2nd place finish for you, Zachary, showing some really good consistency despite not getting the race win I'm sure you're looking forward to, but just kind of take us through what it was like challenging the navigating the Road America course here, especially with all the dirt on the racetrack we were seeing.
Oh yeah, it was dirty out there. That's for sure. The track got a little bit slippery. Yeah, tough night. I mean, second, like getting second again. That's tough. Of course, we'll get the victory, but made so many mistakes. I'm just so mad at myself because I could have been on pole by like if I just didn't try a little bit too hard in Canada Corner, I'd have been on pole by a mile. And having the clean air, having the track position just makes everything so much easier when you're out there. And it seemed like every time I tried to get a little bit, some mistake would come up and I'd slip back. So that was just all on me tonight, messing up. But I'm definitely happy with the rebound there and like the final stage kind of coming through with some of the other guys' mistakes, and finally found a rhythm there at the end till I dropped it in the final quarter going to the white flag. But got it back home a second, luckily again.
It was a great recovery for you there, Zachary, to drive up to P2. Did you feel like if you had the right opportunity to qualify and run the race the way you wanted to, do you think you could have had anything for Lawson?
I think really what ruined everything is we had a battle between like the 78, my teammate Cedric there, and I got into it there in Canada Corner, and Cedric had to like check up, and I could not, like, I had to literally jab the brake and just completely give up like 4 seconds almost of time just to not completely T-bone him with him being sideways on the track in front of me. So that kind of hurt both of us, and then we were kind of making mistakes trying to get around the 78. He was kind of holding us up there a little bit. I know you're racing, but it was tough to get around to him, of course. And I think that gave that little bit of room. And then, once you got that room, I really feel like Pill was just like me and him. I was getting the times back from Robert and getting everything, and like I'd match him, but just when you're matching somebody, there's really nothing you can do. So I felt like if we could have qualified out front, led the race, it'd have been maybe a different story. But he was definitely quick. I mean, he more than deserving of the win for sure.
It was great effort from you, Zachary. We move on to New Hampshire next week, which is the final race of the regular season before we move into our All-Star break. What was all that made it happen for you and your number 23 team here tonight?
Well, I got to give a shout out to everybody here at the league. Thank you to everybody that puts it on, all the admins, everybody. It's really a pleasure to run in. I'm having a blast so far, getting second on a weekly basis, it seems like. So shout out to the league. Shout out to you guys also up in the booth for everything y'all do. Y'all are amazing, and can't wait to go back and watch this interesting race for myself up and down through the field, and the rest of the guys, how they tried to figure tonight out. And shout out to my teammates, too, out there, Cedric and Robert. They're awesome to have during the races, and it's going to be a fun time going through these next few weeks.
Appreciate the time you take with us, Zachary. Another P2 effort. We hope to see you out in New Hampshire.
Thanks, guys.
Zachary Hall comes home in second, and it is a familiar face greeting us from third, Ross Harlow. Welcome back to the booth. Welcome back to another third-place finish, your second straight of this 2025 season. You overall had one of the fastest cars of the field. You won stage one, and this Chevrolet was on rails. What did it feel like all night long?
Oh, man, it was honestly, it was stressful. I mean, the car felt as good as it's ever going to feel at a track like this. But I don't think I had more than 2 or 3 laps where I wasn't fighting with someone on track, and had a blast with it. But there's a lot of talent in this field, and I think I went toe to toe with just about all of it tonight.
And a lot of it came with the fights, a lot of it came with the struggles. What was going on throughout the battle from your perspective with Lawson, and then in those waning laps with Zachary Hall? It seemed like several times tonight you find yourself toe-to-toe with another driver. Very hard and clean racing, but all came down to where you made the move and where it all happened. What was that like?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Especially with Lawson. I saw him wind up in second, and I just started hearing the Jaws theme playing. But I knew I was going to have to be perfect to have a chance against him, and I wasn't. I was pretty damn good, but just made too many mistakes to really have a shot at Lawson. And, got lucky. Just Zach had a little bit of a whoopsie doodle coming out of I think that was 14, on the second to last lap, and really gave me one more shot at that second place. But like I said earlier, I mean, just the caliber of driver in this field right now. that's what you have to do to be able to finish even on the podium, let alone get a win. Is you got to be damn near perfect. Absolute blast. It's great running with this sort of with these guys because you can have that trust that you can run them hard, they can run you hard, you can lean on each other a little bit, and nobody's going to go home upset about it at the end of the day, and everybody's going to go home with a finish in the top 3, top 5. Curtis and I had a blast. We were chirping at each other and just having a grand old time. Same thing with Zach. I mean, that's some of the best road course racing I think I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of tonight.
Well, it was a ton of fun to watch from our end. I'm going to say that much. As you guys move on to New Hampshire, final race before the All-Star break at Martinsville. What do you foresee in that race? Another short track outing where lots of drivers are going to be strong.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. A lot of guys up here in New England consider that place their home track, myself included. I know Stempy and I both have that place circled. I know my little brother does as well. It's going to be the same thing as tonight. Just go out, give it everything we got. Race hard, but race clean. Like I said, this one's circled for me, so I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a while since we've run Loudon, and I'm just excited to see what's changed. We're gonna have the new tire by next week, so we'll see if that changes anything. It should be fun. It's gonna be an experience for sure.
Going to be really exciting up in the Northeast next Sunday, but on behalf of everything that's gone on here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, Ross, who makes it happen for you, and who do you have to thank for tonight's performance?
Of course, Tilball Hall Project. Love those guys. Been working with them for so long now. G&G's Gift. Dropping the Hammah podcast. Millie Memories Trove. All the sponsors on this thing, on this hot rod. All my teammates, of course. We all bounce ideas off each other, and they're all, there's a lot of talent in there, and love every one of them. Mom, dad, all their support. Of course, my wife. Got to thank the wife. Big emphasis there because she'll she loves that part. But huge thank you to you guys up in the booth. You guys put on an absolutely incredible show. All the admin team for putting on the racing that they do here. I know I said it last week, but this is easily the best racing I think I've ever seen in any iteration of a league like this. And it's all thanks to them, being able to put it together and get a good group of guys and give us a rule package and a setup package that you can really race with. So that's I think that's a lot of them.
But it's a good list. It's a good list for sure. And the momentum stepping in your direction, last 2 races on podium. So I think it says good about what your season will look like here as we move forward. Very exciting stuff. Ross, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the 3rd place finish from Road America, and congrats on the stage win. We'll see you guys at New Hampshire next Sunday.
Absolutely, buddy. We'll see you next week.
That's Ross Harlow from 3rd place, taking away the spot. Stage 1 winner, leading 19 laps, and plenty of great racing across this 4-mile gem here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. As we move forward, Francisco, and we end up at a short track. 2 short tracks over the next several weeks. Loudon, a points-paying race. Martinsville, the All-Star race in late March. And like Ross said, his brother Steven Stempian, among those that have this track circled, or they've had it circled since this schedule released a couple of months ago. They are going to give New Hampshire their best shot yet, which should make our second short track race of the season very, very exciting.
Yeah, our grand old Yankees of the series are going to try and make sure they take advantage of their home turf, much like I like to do when we show up at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Everyone loves performing at their home racetrack, wanting to put on a good show in front of their home fans, and we're going to have several drivers attempting to do that next week at New Hampshire. Martinsville, the All-Star race, again, going to be very interesting to see how that all shakes out in the end. But of course, when we come back from that little break of the All-Star break, we'll be at the Talladega Super Speedway, the complete opposite of Martinsville, the biggest oval on the schedule, Talladega, on March 30th. And then we proceed over to the Monster Mile to begin our little spring section of April.
It's going to be great. Tons of diverse tracks across this regular season, and we are just getting started. But for right now, the man to beat is Lawson Peel, who captures his third victory of this 2025 season. And that will do it for us here at the KBueno Racing Network for our coverage of race number 6 in this DTH Cup Series from Road America. For Steven Stepien, Chris Progar, and the entire admin team at the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer and Keelan Belsha, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacquiao, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying good night from Elkhart Lake. Lawson Peel takes his third win of the 2025 season. We'll see you in New Hampshire 1 week from tonight in Loudon.